commodities rocked as well. Oil sliding, WTI down 2.9%, 51 spot 82. Brent at 56.66, down more than 3%. And gold moving higher, up 1.9%, $1,675 an ounce. How quickly can we get to 1,700, Roger?
A lot happening out there. Let me tell you that we're expecting to hear from Donald Trump quite shortly, speaking at a rally in Ahmedabad in India, where he's arrived in the last hour. But lots more lines coming across the terminal now in terms of reaction to the virus and effects of it. Air France shares tumbled 7.7% as virus cases outside China jumped. We also, LVMH very much exposed that market. They fell 7.2%, the most in 11 months on virus concerns. Well, let's have a look at other stocks to watch this morning. Bloomberg's Joe Easton is with me here in our London studio. And Joe, we may have to interrupt you if President Trump begins, which we're expecting fairly shortly. We'll keep you posted on that. But for the moment, the other big news, non-virus related this morning, Barclays CEO Jess Staley, according to the FT, expected to leave by the end of 2021.
That's right. So Staley could be leaving by the annual meeting of next year, which is in May, according to the Financial Times. He joined the bank in 2015, but recently there's obviously been some more uncertainty with the revelation that there's an investigation into his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, the second probe by the UK authorities following a probe into his attempts to cover up uncover a whistleblower a few years ago. So there is some uncertainty around his position, and also it's a time when the company is really struggling to hit its profit targets. So they've walked back essentially on some profit targets that they gave around a year ago in their latest report. They're now saying they're probably not going to be able to hit those targets. So it is another development. Barclays shares are dropping around 3% today, but actually that's in line with the broader bank because of the broader banking index, because of this sell-off that Naira has been going through. And it's not even the worst performing bank we're seeing. I'm seeing Deutsche Bank shares down as much as 5%. So it's not the worst performing, but definitely another weight on the stock there for Barclays, down 3% this morning.
Meanwhile, the Spanish pharmaceutical Almirall, they've seen their 2020 EBITDA at 260 to 280 million euros. That's pretty much below the estimate.
That's right. So the estimate was for around 306 million. So they have missed on the guidance there. This is largely due to some generics competition for one of their acne treatments. So it's a dermatology company. One of their acne drugs has been facing a lot of generic competition, but they say this won't last very long because they've got their own authorized generic that's going to be released. So they think that they will make up some of that ground there in terms of the market share that's lost. And actually, some of the other lines in the statement were quite positive. So they beat on net interest income, and also on they say that they could be doing some more M&A. So it's a mixed report at the moment, but that stock is indicated down a few percentage points. Not open at the moment in Madrid, but we'll wait for a price on that one.
Indeed. And meanwhile, there are obviously virus issues still hanging around in almost everywhere, and one of them seems to be Primark's owner citing those risks to the supply chain from China as part of their issue.
That's right. So AB Foods, the parent company of Primark, saying that there could be delays to some of their supply systems in China, but they've actually built up an inventory, the company's saying today, and they are well stocked for several months, and they're considering asking factories in other regions outside of China to increase production to make up the gap that they're seeing. They've actually maintained their full year outlook today. First half sales at Primark are going to grow by 4%, they say. So it's quite positive. The sales are still increasing, but they are warning of these problems over in their factories because of the virus, as you mentioned. That stock down 2%, but that's pretty much in line with the broader market this morning.
All right, Joe, thanks so much. Joe Easton there with stocks to watch. Thank you.
Speaking of the broader market, Roger, I misspoke earlier. I said the 10-year yield was at a September low. How could I underplay it? 2016 low is where we are on that 10-year yield, although, of course, we're not yet at the record low of a 131 handle at 140. Just don't want to underplay what the bull market is pricing at all.
The 30 years.
Joe Easton's laughing at me as he walks out. But yeah, 30-year hit a fresh record. Yeah. But no, the 10-year, where I got September from, I don't know. It's a 2016 low. So let's continue with what's been driving these risk-off moves. We start with the spread of the coronavirus. Here in Europe, Italy has become the epicenter with more than 140 infections reported and 3 deaths. Emergency measures have been implemented. The government imposed a lockdown on an area of 50,000 people near Milan. Authorities cancelled the remaining days of the Venice Carnival and said several universities closed. Matteo Salvini, leader of the League Party, used the outbreak to attack Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte for not defending the borders.
And here in the UK, 4 more patients have tested positive for the virus. They arrived in the country on Sunday on an evacuation flight with 32 passengers from the quarantined Diamond Princess cruise ship, which is off Japan. They've been taken from the quarantine location to a specialist NHS infection centre. The total number of cases in the UK confirmed is now 13.
And in addition to Europe, of course, the coronavirus continues to spread across Asia. It's raising concerns about the prospect of a global pandemic. With the latest from Asia, Bloomberg's Brian Curtis reports from Hong Kong.
South Korea adds new cases, bringing the total to more than 760 and announces 2 more deaths. China adds 409 new cases and reports 150 more deaths. President Xi calls on China to spare no effort in saving Beijing. On a positive note, 6 Chinese provinces have lowered emergency levels, including Guangdong, and Wuhan is now allowing non-local residents to leave the city. In business, Cathay Pacific Airways will reduce around 40% of capacity, and Air New Zealand warns its earnings will take a hit. In Hong Kong, Brian Curtis, Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
Central and local governments are loosening the criteria for factories to resume operations as they walk a tightrope between containing the virus and lessening the economic slump. Now, on lessening the economic slump, first of all, Roger, we had the PBOC deputy governor saying there will be a V-shaped recovery, but in the meantime, it's like China's not taking any chances. At a Friday meeting chaired by President Xi Jinping, officials pledged to be more proactive in using fiscal policy and exercise more flexibility in monetary easing. The wording indicates a greater easing bias, by the way, compared with these. So certainly looking to increase that stimulus. More special bond sales, targeted tax cut measures have been pledged. There's a number of things to look out for. Bloomberg Economics has a great piece out on what to look out for from here.
And we're shortly going, I should say, to a speech from Donald Trump in India. He's, in fact, on stage now with the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi at this amazing, huge rally going on in Ahmedabad. We're going to hear from him very shortly. One other line coming across the terminal right now in relation, of course, to the virus. Stock 600 has extended its losses down 2.4%. That's the most since October the 2nd. We're doing a lot of records this morning, Naira.
Yeah. I mean, that's a superlative rather than a record.
All
but
right. Very much of the same thing. Anyway, let's now hear from, in terms of what the virus impact is, from UBS chairman Axel Weber, who says markets are underpricing the risk that the coronavirus poses to the global economy.
They definitely underprice the downside risks there are. At the moment, they look at this as a very transitory, sharp decline, sharp V-shaped recovery, and we're done. That's not going to be the case.
Now, that was Axel Weber speaking in a Bloomberg TV interview during the G20 summit in Riyadh. By his estimates, global growth will experience a massive drop from 3.5% to 0.5%, and China will post a negative growth rate in the first quarter. And that hasn't happened since at least 1990, according to data compiled by Bloomberg.
Yeah, and in terms of, what more officials can do, basically, no surprise, I suppose, a number of ECB officials pressuring governments to ready a virus response. So you had France's François Villeroy de Gallo saying that monetary policy can't be the only response to the virus. He, alongside Italy's Ignazio Visco, was speaking at the G20 meeting. Interestingly, though, Visco said that we need 2 quarters to understand the economic impact. I really do wonder how investors would react if they think that officials are going to wait 2 quarters before responding. You get the sense that at least some signals of a faster response might need to be sent.
I think what's really coming out is this lack of knowledge, the lack of clear picture. If you haven't got a clear picture, how can you make those kind of investment decisions? Yeah,
so it's whether you front load that and you do the risk mitigation by acting sooner. I mean, certainly you're not getting signals from the Fed that that's going to happen. And again, that then begs the question, if the Fed doesn't give the dovish signals soon enough, what is that going to do to risk sentiment, which, as we've talked about, has been taking a hit across assets today. But then in corporate news as well, Roger, we're looking at UniCredit and HSBC.
Yeah, this is an interesting one because they've confirmed, UniCredit's confirmed Jean-Pierre Moustier will stay at the bank. With Moustier out of the running, though, for HSBC's top job. What happens at the UK lender as it embarks on its third major overhaul in a decade? HSBC for themselves say it could take until July to name their new CEO. That's 12 months after the insider Noel Quinn was named as the interim chief.
Yeah, we'll delve into the story in a bit more depth later in the hour, but it's interesting because one of the things that sort of came out in the reporting over the weekend is whether HSBC is going to struggle to find an external candidate because, as we've discussed before, so many challenges that HSBC has found difficult to justify to shareholders as to why they're facing challenges on so many fronts. So if you're looking in from the outside, I guess you've got to ask yourself, is this a job that you want to take on? Now, meanwhile, Barclays CEO Jez Staley told colleagues he expects to leave the group by the end of next year. That's according to an FT report. Staley could stand down at the annual meeting in May 2021. A Barclays spokesperson declined to comment.
And Warren Buffett has spent a record $2.2 billion buying back shares in Berkshire Hathaway, and he's looking to repurchase even more. He spent a portion of his annual letter, which is very much watched, of course, reassuring shareholders about the future of this company. He says the company is 100% prepared for the departure of Buffett himself and, of course, his business partner, Charlie Munger.
We're still awaiting President Trump speaking from India, where he's on a 3-day official visit. We've heard Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India giving opening remarks. As we await that, let's get the latest in global news with Bloomberg's Leanne Gerrans. Hi, Leanne.
Good morning, Naira. Malaysian Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad has resigned. This development comes after rumours swirled that he was trying to reconfigure the ruling coalition without Anwar Ibrahim, the man who was expected to succeed him. Anwar and Mahathir joined forces to win Malaysia's 2018 elections on the promise Anwar would eventually take over. Let's cross over to Germany, where Chancellor Angela Merkel's party has plunged to a record low in a state election in Hamburg yesterday. Voters were giving their first verdict on the crisis consuming the Christian Democrats. Bloomberg's Patrick Donahue has all those details.
The CDU fell to just above 11% in the German port city, while the Social Democrats secured a victory and support for the Greens surged. The CDU has been hobbled since Merkel's heir apparent, Annegret Kramp-Karrenbauer, this month scrapped her ambitions to replace the German leader. Merkel has said she'll step down after the next election, which is next autumn at the latest. In Berlin, Patrick Donahue, Bloomberg Daybreak, Europe.
In Iran, the nation's hardliners have won parliamentary elections, according to state media. Conservatives swept the votes in Tehran and other key cities. That's amid the instability and economic damage triggered by U.S. sanctions. The expectation is that President Rouhani, backed by reformers, will now largely be sidelined. And voting is beginning in the contest to replace Jeremy Corbyn as a Labour leader. Members and supporters are gathering their ballots this week, with the successor finally announced on the 4th of April. Keir Starmer, Lisa Nandy and Rebecca Long-Bailey have all said they would give jobs in the shadow cabinet to their rivals if they win. And Rebecca Long-Bailey says if she loses, she'll still be happy to serve.
Keir and Lisa are brilliant, and we all get on with each other in real life, despite what you might see on Twitter or anywhere else. But I would be happy to serve under any of their leaderships, and I know that as you as members would expect the same thing.
Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Leanne Gerrans. This is Bloomberg. Roger.
Leanne, thanks. Yes, it's a really interesting moment with the beginning of the process for getting the Labour leader in place. A lot of writing over the weekend about interest as to who will be the new shadow chancellor of the Exchequer under whoever comes in, and what that could mean to tell us about what potentially a future Labour government might intend. A lot of names in the frame, but nothing very clear at this stage. Obviously, we still don't know who will be the Labour leader, and we won't know, of course, till April. Now, meanwhile, I should tell you we're waiting for Donald Trump to start speaking in Ahmedabad. At the moment, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, his host, is making some opening remarks at this enormous Namaste Trump rally there in India.
Yeah, what Modi's been saying so far is that President Trump's visit will further strengthen the India-US friendship. Roger, he was saying that earlier, and of course, President Trump is there along with the First Lady for a 3-day official visit. In terms of what they've been doing so far, basically Trump and Modi laid a wreath at the Gandhi Memorial in Ahmedabad, India, and it is Prime Minister Modi's home state that they're actually meeting in. He landed in Gujarat. As you say, it was called a Namaste Trump event.
Indeed. Welcome. Namaste means welcome.
It actually doesn't.
Okay, well, you tell me. It's
it
peace.
literally means obey, or it means my light sees the light in you.
All right. throw it in there. But essentially, it's done as a welcome.
Yes,
but
yes.
the point is, in all this, it's a very interesting moment of geopolitics because historically, America has been far closer, of course, to Pakistan than to India. And now there is someone in charge in India with whom, at least it's pretty clear, Donald Trump feels very comfortable, perhaps rather less comfortable than he feels with the current leadership in Pakistan. But that's a debatable point. Generally, it tends to be one or the other that's in favour in the White House, not both, because obviously they are considerable rivals.
Yeah, and Modi saying that India and the US now enjoy a far closer relationship. I mean, the crowds that are gathered there, we, as we're sitting here, can see the pictures on APTN at the moment. President Trump looks like he's listening intently to what Prime Minister Narendra Modi is saying, but really vast crowds in attendance. I don't know if we have an idea of how many people are actually there, but it looks like a lot. Let's just take a quick check-in on the markets, though, as we're 20 minutes into the equity market open here in Europe, because for markets, the focus is very much, of course, the spread of coronavirus outside of China. South Korea on red alert, a part of Italy, north of Italy, in lockdown, and China wanting to bring workers back into factories. But then that begs the question whether you'll have a renewed outbreak, even as China is trying to get the economic momentum going again, and of course, pledging more stimulus, both fiscal and monetary. The Stock 600 down 2.5% right now, dropping the most since October. You're seeing the FTSE 100 down 2%, CAC 40 down almost 3%, DAX down 2.8%. Italy leading losses, no surprise, down more than 4% right now. US futures pointing to a third day of losses, which would be the first 3-day loss for the S&P 500 since early December. Dow and S&P futures down almost 2%, Nasdaq futures down 2.5%. The bond markets, the 10-year Treasury yield below 140 now, down 7 basis points. We're not yet at the record low of a 131 handle, but we are hitting a 2016 low on that 10-year yield. The 30-year yield hits a fresh record low, 185 handle, down 6 basis points.
Now, one headline coming across the terminal the last few months, China is going to postpone annual legislative meetings. No date set as to when they will actually be held as a result of the virus. That's a quite significant measure. We'll bring you more details on that in a moment. But let's also talk about the effect in Italy, because it's become the European epicenter as it confirms around 140 cases and 3 deaths. For more, let's go live to Milan, where Bloomberg's Gerald Colton is standing by. Gerald, good morning to you. Let me just ask you, first of all, just bring us up to speed. What's the status of the lockdown in that area of Italy, which we've heard so much about?
Good morning. The status is that a series of towns in a province called Lodi near Milan are in a severe lockdown. Citizens aren't allowed to leave and people aren't allowed to go in. Police are surrounding the area, and we've heard some reports that military may also be dispatched to that area. So lockdown is quite an accurate term. It's not overblown for the area just south of here.
Yeah, and interestingly, whereas elsewhere we're seeing bond yields fall, no surprise that in Italy that 10-year yield is jumping 8 basis points. We've hit a February high. We're just below 1% on the 10-year BTP yield. Gerald, how concerned should we be about the potential economic fallout for Italy?
Well, I think the government has already has been spinning this for the last several days, so I think that we'll expect a relatively significant effect on the economy. And just in the last day or so, you've seen the economy of the north, which is the economic engine of the country. I don't want to say shut down, but slow down significantly, with some indications of further braking to come over the next few days. Companies in partial shutdown mode. You can just see from the level of economic activity here that things have slowed down significantly. So if this continues, I expect that the effect would be significant.
And in those circumstances, is it likely, really, that we're going to see more of an impact from the political issue here? Because we've already seen Salvini, the leader of the opposition, pretty much, leader of the League Party, using this to pick a fight, really, with Giuseppe Conte, the Prime Minister. I mean, is this going to expand, do you think? Is in fact Salvini talking to a public that wants to hear this kind of thing?
Yeah, well, as you know, here in Italy, they don't need much to begin fighting between the political parties. It's kind of a specialty here. And for Salvini, I think this issue does play right to his strength and right to the fears of his constituency, namely open borders, migrants coming in. We've already seen an attempt by Salvini, who's the leader of the League Party, trying to link the immigration from across the Mediterranean with the virus, even though there isn't any proof that there's any migrants from Africa bringing coronavirus to Italy. But he's certainly playing on that.
Gerald, as we're speaking, we've got the EU giving a press briefing on their response at the moment. So we're hearing from European Commissioner for Crisis Management, Janez Lenarčič, and European Commissioner for Health and Food Safety, Stella Kyriakides. And basically what they're saying is that the EU is to fund a vaccine treatment of the virus with 100 million euros. It's to mobilise 230 million euros to help fight against the virus. They're saying that the Italian virus cases are a cause for concern, which I think we can all agree with. But they've also said that Italy's response has been swift and efficient, and the WHO and ECDC mission is to visit Italy for the virus. Will the Italians see this as solidarity in terms of the rest of Europe in helping them overcome this outbreak?
Yes, I think they will. There is a little bit of sensitivity here, I think, about whether whether the Italians reacted correctly. There's been some response from the government and from medical authorities that the main reason that we're seeing the spike in reported cases is because of enhanced testing, and the feeling is that if other countries stepped up their testing, they would see the same thing.
Great to have you with us. Thank you so much, Bloomberg's Gerald Colton, joining us from Milan.
Right, now let's go live over to Ahmedabad, India, where Donald Trump is about to speak after being introduced by the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Let's have a listen.
An exceptional leader, a great champion of India, a man who works night and day for his country, and a man I am proud to call my true friend, Prime Minister Modi. The First Lady and I have just traveled 8,000 miles around the globe to deliver a message to every citizen across this nation. America loves India. America respects India. And America will always be faithful and loyal friends to the Indian people. 5 months ago, the United States welcomed your great Prime Minister at a giant football stadium in Texas. And today, India welcomes us at the world's largest cricket stadium right here in Ahmedabad. It is a profound honor to be the beautiful new stadium, to be here with you.
Let's get this right, sir. You didn't see three men dressed as clowns take off in a van with a Renaissance painting because you were distracted by, and I quote, a sporty red compact SUV with a bold mesh grille, a sculpted bonnet with sweeping roofline on diamond-cut alloys.
And beautiful rear haunches.
So, you saw a Jaguar E-Pace. But what about the clowns?
What clowns?
Jaguar E-Pace, designed to steal attention. Search Jaguar E-Pace.
The thing that I would say to anybody that was thinking about a job in social care is go for it. I'm Georgia. I love social care because you never know what each day will bring. It's emotional sometimes, highs and lows, but no 2 days are the same. I love the work, yeah. It makes me feel really good as a person. We make people smile every day.
If you want to make a difference to your life, care for someone else's, visit everydaysdifferent.com to find jobs in adult social care.
Good morning, this is your Southern service to London Victoria. Join in our onboard quiz. Here's our next clue. What C sounds like a handheld party food but keeps you dry and protected from the rain? Not canapes, canopies.
At Southern Railway, we're investing over £7 million into making improvements for you, like canopies, cycle parking and new platform lighting across more of our stations. Find out more and book your tickets at southernrailway.com. Southern Railway, we're with you.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations. You'll also get live commercial-free news, plus live play-by-play games from NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip
Follow
Bayless.
at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
A moving story of an incredible rise, and so does this entire nation. Your nation is doing so well. We are very, very proud of India. The story of the Indian nation is a tale of astounding progress, a miracle of democracy, extraordinary diversity, and above all, a strong and noble people. India gives hope to all of humanity. In just 70 years, India has become an economic giant, the largest democracy ever to exist, and one of the most amazing nations anywhere in the world. Since the turn of the century, India's economy has grown more than 6 times in size. In a single decade, India has lifted over 270 million people out of poverty. Under Prime Minister Modi, for the first time in history, every village in India now has access to electricity. 320 million people, more Indians, are right now connected to the internet. The pace of highway construction has more than doubled. Over 70 million more households, think of this, 70 million more households have access to cooking fuel. 600 million more people have access to basic sanitation. And incredibly, 12 Indian citizens are lifted out of extreme poverty every single minute of every single day. India will soon be the home of the biggest middle class anywhere in the world, and within less than 10 years, extreme poverty in your country is projected to completely disappear. The potential for India is absolutely incredible. India's rise as a prosperous and independent nation is an example to every nation all over the world and one of the most outstanding achievements of our century. It is all the more inspiring because you have done it as a democratic country. You have done it as a peaceful country. You have done it as a tolerant country. And you have done it as a great free country. There is all the difference in the world between a nation that seeks power through coercion, intimidation, and aggression, and a nation that rises by setting its people free and unleashing them to chase their dreams, and that is India. This is why India's accomplishment over the last 70 years is completely unrivaled no matter where you go. It is your faith in the strength of a free society, your confidence in your own people, your trust in your own citizens, and your respect for the dignity of every person that makes the United States and India such a natural, beautiful, enduring friendship. While our nations have many differences, they are both defined and propelled by a fundamental truth, the truth that all of us are blessed with divine light and every person is endowed with a sacred soul. As the great religious teacher Swami Vivekananda once said, the moment I stand in reverence before every human being and see God in him, that moment I am free. In America and in India, we know that we are all born for a higher purpose, to reach toward our fullest potential, to work toward excellence and perfection, and to give all glory to God. Powered by this spirit, Indians and Americans are always striving to be greater. Our people are always seeking to be better. And so our nations have become thriving centers of culture and commerce and civilization, giving light and vitality to all of the world. This is the country that produces nearly 2,000 movies a year from the hub of genius and creativity known as Bollywood. All over the planet, people take great joy in scenes of Bhangra, music, dance, romance, and drama, and classic Indian films like DDLJ and Chojai. This is the country where your people cheer on some of the world's greatest cricket players, from Sachin Tendulkar to Virat Kohli, the greatest in the world. This is the country that built the tallest statue on the face of the earth to honor the namesake of this stadium, the great Indian patriot and native of this state, Sardar Patel. India is the country where hundreds of millions of light candles to celebrate the triumph of good over evil at Diwali. And it's where, just days from now, Indians of all faiths will pour out onto the streets to celebrate the beautiful festival of Holi. India is a country that proudly embraces freedom, liberty, individual rights, the rule of law, and the dignity of every human being. Your nation has always been admired around the earth as the place where millions upon millions of Hindus and Muslims and Sikhs and Jains, Buddhists, Christians, and Jews worship side by side in harmony. Where you speak more than 100 languages and come from more than 24 states, yet you have always stood strong as one great Indian nation. Your unity is an inspiration to the world. In America, we have come to know the splendor of Indian culture personally through the 4 million Indian Americans living in the United States as our wonderful friends, colleagues, and neighbors. They are truly spectacular people. Indian Americans enrich every aspect of our national life. They are titans of business, the biggest, the best, pioneers of science, masters of the art, and innovation of technology like few people have been able to see, no matter where you go, anywhere in this universe. Nearly 1 in 4 Indian Americans trace their roots right here in Gujarat. Gujarat is a special place. So on behalf of the entire American people, thank you, and thank you all for the contributions your culture and traditions have made to my beloved country. Americans are eager to strengthen these beautiful ties between our two people. This is truly an exciting time in the United States. Our economy is booming like never before. Our people are prospering and spirits are soaring. There is tremendous love, tremendous we like and we love everybody. Unemployment has hit historic lows and small business confidence has hit an all-time record high in the history of our country. Our military has been completely rebuilt. It is now stronger than ever before, and we are quickly revitalizing our alliances and friendships all around the world. We have spent $2.5 trillion on rebuilding our military. It's the most powerful military anywhere in the world by far. That is why I have come here to India in the spirit of fondness and goodwill to expand our cherished partnership of incredible power and potential. The First Lady and I have just had a pleasure of visiting Mahatma Gandhi's ashram a few miles from here, where he launched the famous Salt March. And tomorrow in Delhi, we will lay a wreath, plant a tree at Rajghat in honor of this leader who is revered all around the world. And the First Lady and I look forward to visiting one of your country's most iconic landmarks. We are later today going to see the majestic Taj Mahal. The Prime Minister and I will also continue our important discussions about how to deepen the relationship between our two great countries. Both of us understand that when leaders put the interests of their own citizens first, we can forge strong and fair partnerships to build a safer and more prosperous world. Just months ago, this critical partnership took a major step forward when the U.S. military and your brave Indian Armed Forces conducted the first ever air, land, and sea military exercises between our two countries. It was something to behold. We called it Tiger Triumph. As we continue to build our defense cooperation, the United States looks forward to providing India with some of the best and most feared military equipment on the planet. We make the greatest weapons ever made. Airplanes, missiles, rockets, ships. We make the best, and we're dealing now with India. But this includes advanced air defense systems and armed and unarmed aerial vehicles. And I am pleased to announce that tomorrow our representatives will sign deals to sell over $3 billion in the absolute finest state-of-the-art military helicopters and other equipment to the Indian Armed Forces. I believe that the United States should be India's premier defense partner, and that's the way it's working out. Together we will defend our sovereignty, security, and protect a free and open Indo-Pacific region for our children and for many, many...
Hey, have you heard? The Mayor of London has launched his latest van scrappage scheme to help tackle London's toxic air. Small businesses or sole traders like me with a polluting van could now get £7,000, which you could use to trade up to a Euro 6 vehicle. And you could get an extra £2,500 towards running costs if you go electric. The scheme is now even easier to qualify for, and it's open to any businesses with up to 50 employees, like mine. So, I'm going to search TfL Scrappage to see if I'm eligible and apply. You should do the same. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Taking it for a spin has changed. Giving it a whirl has changed. With £500 towards a qualifying new Vauxhall with 4.9% APR representative when you take a test drive, the rules have changed. Book your test drive this weekend. Vauxhall. New rules Britannia. Allowance provided as deposit contribution on qualifying new Vauxhalls. Conditional sale and personal contract purchase only. Subject to status. T's and C's. 18 plus Vauxhall Finance. Registered by 2nd of April 2020. Search Try Your New Vauxhall.
Good morning, this is your Southern service to London, Victoria. Join in our onboard quiz. Here's our next clue. What C sounds like a handheld party food but keeps you dry and protected from the rain? Not canapes, canopies.
At Southern Railway, we're investing over £7 million into making improvements for you, like canopies, cycle parking and new platform lighting across more of our stations. Find out more and book your tickets at southernrailway.com. Southern Railway, we're with you.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn. When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip
Follow
Bayless.
at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Start hearing more of what you want.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations,
Live commercial-free news,
and every live NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL game.
Visit tunein.com/premium to upgrade.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Are you curious what others are listening to on TuneIn? Head to the trending section under Browse to see the most popular stations and podcasts among TuneIn listeners right now. Check it out. You might just discover something new for yourself.
Thanks to these efforts, we are beginning to see signs of big progress with Pakistan, and we are hopeful for reduced tensions, greater stability, and the future of harmony for all of the nations of South Asia. India has an important leadership role to play in shaping a better future as you take on greater responsibility for solving problems and promoting peace throughout this incredible region. Over the course of my visit, Prime Minister Modi and I will also discuss our efforts to expand the economic ties between our two countries. We will be making very, very major, among the biggest ever made, trade deals. We are in the early stages of discussion for an incredible trade agreement to reduce barriers of investment between the United States and India. And I am optimistic that working together, the Prime Minister and I can reach a fantastic deal that's good and even great for both of our countries. Except that he's a very tough negotiator. Since my inauguration, commerce between our two nations has increased by more than 40%. India is now a major market for American exports, and the United States is India's largest export market. A booming America is a great thing for India, and it's great for the world, and that's why we're so happy to announce that we have had the greatest economy ever in the history of the United States. In America, we have proven that the best way to attract jobs and opportunity is to reduce burdens on business, knock down barriers to new investment, and eliminate unnecessary bureaucracy, red tape, regulation, and taxes. Prime Minister Modi has already made significant reforms here in your country, as you very well know. The world looks forward to even more rapid improvement to India's business climate under his leadership. He wants to do it, and he's doing it at a record pace. 2 years ago, Prime Minister Modi warmly welcomed my daughter Ivanka to the Global Entrepreneurship Summit in Hyderabad, and she is back with us today. Ivanka, thank you. Thank you for being here. We are delighted to be joined as well by dozens of Indian women entrepreneurs who are helping to build your nation's future. They are great and natural entrepreneurs. And I just say to the men, be very careful. They're really good. The United States and India are also working closely together on the future of space exploration. You are making impressive strides with your exciting Chandrayaan lunar program. It is moving along rapidly, far ahead of schedule, and America looks forward to expanding our space cooperation with India. As you push even further, you are pushing the limits, and that's a great thing, including in the realm of human spaceflight. The United States and India will be friends and partners on our voyage into the stars and into space. It is truly extraordinary what this nation has achieved in the span of just one lifetime, and what they have done under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi. It is absolutely incredible. Mr. Prime Minister, congratulations. You have come so far, but it is nothing compared to with how far India will go into the future. And the Prime Minister is laying the foundations for a future like few other countries can even think of. This nation is blessed with many treasures, from the sacred banks of the Ganges to the Golden Temple and the Jama Masjid. It is the home to some of the most cherished cultural heritage anywhere on earth. It is also the land of stunning vistas and astounding natural wonders, from the rugged peaks of the Himalayas to the splendid shores of Goa. And India has always been a wellspring of deep wisdom and great ideas, from the Vestas and the ancient epics all the way to the modern India nation. But standing before all of you today, I know that true strength of India is not found in its textbooks, its landmarks, or its landscapes. The true strength of India is found in 125,000 beating hearts in this stadium, and the millions and millions of people who have seen and witnessed our great friendship and admiration today. It is all found in the soul and the spirit of the Indian people. Your courage won and secured this nation's independence. Your devotion built this great and enduring democracy. And it is your dreams that will power this country to a future even greater progress, prosperity, equality, and opportunity for every citizen across your land. So today I say to every Indian, North and South, Hindu and Muslim, Jewish and Christian, rich and poor, young and old, take pride in the glories of your past. Unite for an even brighter future, and let our two nations always stand together as powerful defenders of peace and liberty and the hope of a better world for all of humanity. Thank you again, Prime Minister Modi, for your hospitality, and thank you, India, for this phenomenal welcome.
President Trump there delivering a speech in Ahmedabad in Gujarat, state of India, on the first day of an official 3-day visit. He had a lot to say to Prime Minister Narendra Modi, warm words. We got a geographical tour of the country as well, many cultural references. The main things Trump said, though, was that US and India are to sign $3 billion of military sales deals Tuesday. And Trump said he's optimistic that the US and India can reach a great trade deal. Roger, though, the focus in markets today is very much on coronavirus concerns.
Yeah, absolutely, and very much red across the screen in Europe, as indeed it was mostly across the screen in Asia. Just to give you a very quick heads up, Stock 600 deadly and very much red across the screen in Europe, as indeed it was mostly across the screen in Asia. Just to give you a very quick heads up, Stock 600 down almost 3% at the moment, FTSE 100 down 2.5%, the CAC down 3.2%, the DAX down 3.3%. It's a very universal story. Just a couple of other things. The US 10-year Treasury yields, which weren't trading earlier, of course, because Japan was closed. Now 1.38 is the handle. That's down 8 basis points. Nara.
Yeah, the 10-year yield at a 2016 low, the 30-year yield hitting a fresh record low in today's session. We've dropped below 190 right now on a 183 handle. Let's get to our guest for the rest of the hour. Dan Kemp, the CIO of Morningstar Investment Management, with us in the studio. Dan, great to have you with us. There's certainly been a bit of divergence in terms of what bond markets have been signaling and what equity markets have been signaling until now. Today, it's broad risk off. But is there an argument to be more cautious on equity markets right now because they have so far been pricing a V-shaped recovery, and that's something that's certainly come into question after this weekend?
Well, good morning. Yes, we should always be questioning those sorts of forecasts, particularly when we're living in a very, very noisy environment. I think from our perspective as long-term valuation-driven investors, of course, we always want to look at what's baked into the price. And as we think about some equity markets, particularly US equity markets, then there's a lot of good news baked into those prices. And so when you see a situation like the coronavirus, or other tensions around the world, other concerns, then again that can impact on those prices very deeply as people lose that sense of optimism.
So where can you find value and to some extent, I guess, security right now?
Well, security is very challenging because as we heard, the bond yields are incredibly low. Traditionally, of course, investors look to bonds to offset falls in equities. But when bonds look so expensive, where central banks have done so much to lower that bond yield and also stimulate growth, then again, they look pretty unattractive. So it is very tough to find defensive assets, and really what that says to us is that you should just take a little bit less risk. Rather than look for that traditional offset in bonds, we're holding a bit more cash than we normally would. Again, because we don't want to put our clients' capital at risk in really expensive assets, even if they have traditionally defensive characteristics. But from a valuation perspective, where we're really seeing some value is in the UK at the moment. You know, that still looks attractive to us. Also in South Korea, and of course the price moves that we saw there this morning and concerns about coronavirus may provide some good buying opportunities for investors there that have that long-term mindset. And in particular sectors, so for example, energy looks attractive to us. On the other side of the scale, then technology stocks, consumer discretionary stocks, particularly those in the US, look very unattractive.
Yeah, it's interesting because the comment you're making about bonds speaks to what a number of people have said, in that it's quite hard to find good diversifiers right now. It seems to be that the market is really trying to find the bottom of this crisis and work out whether this extends into Q2, Q3, Q4, and if it does, what do you then do if you're expecting monetary or fiscal stimulus? Do you still remain in risk assets, or do you actually see as the damage as bad enough that you want to just keep drawing down on those risk assets? So what I'm wanting to get from you is, at what point do you start to be even more cautious? Do you start looking at the forward-looking indicators in Q2? Do you look to see whether the Fed, for example, stands firm or not giving too many dovish signals? What would signal to you to really take risk off the table?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question, one that's dominating everybody's thinking at the moment. But from our perspective, we think it's a matter of timescale. Mm-hmm. That if you're a trader, if you're worried about returns over 2020, then you're right. You're going to try and trade through the situation. You're going to look for bottoms. You're trying to anticipate what the Fed will do to support markets. As I said, we're long-term investors. We're thinking over the next 5 and 10 years. And so actually what we'll be looking for is bargains. So as equities become cheaper, as they fall below their fair value, we'll be looking to put some of that cash to work in buying great assets for the long term. And I think it's worth remembering on the Monday after the Berkshire Hathaway letter was released that Warren Buffett, who we all admire, of course, as an investor, is thinking about buying long-term compounding businesses at good valuations. And really, as investors, that's what we should focus on as well.
And he's got a mountain of cash as well.
He certainly
has.
has.
You talked about being in cash earlier. Thanks very much indeed, Dan. Dan Kemp there, CIO of Morningstar Investment Management, joining us in our London studio with a sense of where you can go in this extremely uncertain market.
Definitely, and I think one investor summed it up really well, where they said we're trying to work out whether what we see is a demand delay or demand destruction. At the minute, it looks like demand delay, but of course that could all change. The Stock 600 down almost 3% in broad risk off, the 30-year yield at a fresh record low. This is Bloomberg.
Something remarkable happens when just the right elements come together. Ideas with technology, data with...
Imagine carving your way through the fresh snow falling right now in the French resort of Val d'Isère. Fly to Geneva and head to the slopes from only $29.99. Book now with EasyJet. One way per person, limited availability. See easyjet.com.
Financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio.
This is Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
External pressure is going to be an opportunity for reform in China. I think liquidity more generally across financial markets is an issue and a concern.
The Spanish banks in particular are in a much better place than they were 5 years ago.
It wouldn't be great to have a drawn-out trade conflict with the US or indeed with anybody else.
I've never been one to prophesy where sterling will be, and you're a madman if you think you can.
Bloomberg Daybreak Europe on Bloomberg Radio.
Good morning from London. I'm Anna Edwards. And I'm Caroline Hepker. Well, welcome to Bloomberg Daybreak Europe, live on London DAB Digital Radio. Anna. Good morning, Caroline. Let's have a look at what's going on the German markets and the breaking news coming through from Germany right now in the form of the IFO index, so that business confidence measure. February IFO, German Business Confidence Index, at 96.1. The estimate was for 95.3, so that does look to be a little better than the estimate. The current assessment index, 98.9, broadly in line with the estimate of 98.6. This a really interesting take on where German business expects the economy to go, although things are evolving very quickly, I suppose, in terms of the coronavirus in China and elsewhere, now in Europe. And as a result, maybe some of this even for February a little backward looking. German expectations index, 93.4. That's again ahead of the estimate of 92.1. So on the face of it, that data coming in better than was anticipated. Let's check the broader data for you then, because we do that every 15 minutes on Bloomberg Radio. The Stock 600 now down by 3%, just shy of 3%. The FTSE 100 down by 2.8%. The CAC 3.4% weaker. The DAX 3.7% weaker. The FTSE MIB in Italy down by 4.2%. Of course, we've seen an increase in the number of cases, more than 150 cases of coronavirus now in northern Italy, just around Milan. Extraordinary measures being put in place by the Italians to try and control that outbreak, as a result of which we see that the epicenter of the selling for European equity investors is the FTSE MIB, and all things Italian, it would seem, but it's having a clear knock-on into other European markets. US futures also increasingly negative, so US futures down more than 3% on the Nasdaq right now, down just over 2% on Dow and E-mini futures, so cautious certainly as we head towards the start of the US trading day. Commodities also taking a hit, so we see the Brent price 56.52, that is down by 3.4% compared to the previous close. One commodity not taking a hit is gold, as you might expect, 1,683, up by 2.4% on the gold price. Another haven that's getting a bid today, and that is the Treasury markets. Of course, we see 1.38 is the yield on the US 10-year. Currency markets, I was going to say fairly quiet in comparison, but we do see some substantial movements. Certainly the pound is a little weaker, down 0.3% at 129.25. The dollar broadly a little bit stronger. Again, the haven flows there, Caroline. Yeah, indeed. So those are the markets. I want to return to those IFO lines that you were breaking just a moment ago, Anna. For February, German Business Confidence Index ticking a little bit higher, 96.1. The estimated number was for 95.3. Well, for more on the German economy, let's bring in Scott Teal, who is Chief Fixed Income Strategist at BlackRock. Very good morning to you, Tim. Thank you so much for coming in to the radio studio after your TV interview. So look, let's just talk about Germany. You heard the figures just there. You've been arguing that German politics is key for the ECB and its policy review. What is your take now in terms of the European economic engine?
Well, I mean, I think the issue which investors are going to grapple with is what's the shape of the recovery after the kind of coronavirus, after the impact is understood. So the concept of V, U, or L shaped, right? Those are the three choices. And obviously the European economy is going to be very much a big part of that, given the global nature of the economy, given the supply chain issue that we have developing here. And so for European investors, it is about the idea of how long is going to be the disruption, and would that be enough to push the European economy into a recession? Obviously, our base case view is that's not the case, but obviously there's a lot of risk around that, given obviously the extent to which the virus impacts the economy.
And now Italy obviously is very much in focus, given the number of cases there.
Yeah, that's right. But also, if you look at, Italy is generally more of an export-driven market. So Italy and Germany being more export-driven, and countries like France and Spain being more services-oriented. So it's natural also that you have this kind of double impact, right? Not only is it the actual Italy being impacted, but also it's Italy's exposure to global trade. So it's kind of a two-pronged.
Yeah, and Scott, when you look at this from a fixed income perspective, the way it's playing out this morning is interesting, isn't it? We see money going into havens generally, but not into Italian havens. Clearly the market is distinguishing between Italy and other parts of the European government bond space. Does that make sense on an ongoing basis when we're in this is a Schengen country, there is free movement of people across a wide area. Certainly at the moment there is not talk, even questions are being asked about Schengen, but not talk of shutting any borders.
But I mean, it's interesting. I think it's what's happening in the Italy-German spread. So it looks like, again, I was on the TV, but it looks like Italian bond yields are about 7 higher and German bond yields are about 3 or 4 lower, so about 10 wider on the spread. But actually, if we look, let's just take a step back for 1 second and look at other risk assets and fixed income, so other interest rate sensitive products, so investment grade credit, emerging markets, right? All of those prices are higher than the beginning of the year. Yes, treasury yields are about 40 lower. Investment grade credit yields are about 35 lower. Even emerging market yields are about 25 basis points lower. So you haven't seen a contagion in risk risk assets and fixed income. So as this virus becomes more kind of developed market focused, more kind of outside of the Chinese area, it seems to me to be a very sensible response from markets to say, okay, well, we're going to sell anything that's risky and buy things that are risk-free. And so Italy, although the politics in general have been very favorable for Italian assets, the ECB purchase program, the cash flows are very positive. It's a very positive dynamic for European assets more generally. It doesn't surprise me at all this morning that you would have this type of reaction, because investors are doing the thing that investors do when there's big risk events, is that they buy the things that they know are going to pay you back and they sell the things that are more concerning.
So then how low do you think we could go, certainly in US benchmark yields? I mean, yes, we've moved, 50 basis points this year, so that's already quite a significant move. Yes, you say that it's quite sensible, that investors should be going there, but we're at 139 now.
Yeah, so I think it's also good to just take a perspective on that. So last year we had about an 8% return in treasuries, which was pretty extraordinary, particularly given that, if you recall, at the end of 2018 into 2019, we were expecting 75 basis points of tightening, right? We got 75 basis points of easing.
Yeah.
And so this year we've had, again, a 2.5% return in the treasury market so far. This year's pretty extraordinary. So, we're pricing, as I mentioned on TV, we're pricing about 40 basis points of rate cuts this year and another 10 for next year, so 50 in total. Our view had been at a macro level, you'd expect kind of between 0 and 25 basis points. So we're already way beyond that. But again, I think, you can't look at macro fundamentals in a risk-off environment. So the question about how low treasuries can go, so it's a difficult one. And the reason I don't want to put a number on it is because, if the virus were to spread to Germany or to France, the next thing, it's very hard to say what the market's reaction would be. It is clearly, an important point again that treasuries are the flight to quality asset, right? Look at the bond market; it's lagged the performance. It's obviously up in price, but it isn't up as price as much as treasuries, and that's because the policy response in the U.S. can be much greater given where we are in rates.
Yep.
And also, I think it's important that the ECB is going through a policy, review, and so that again is also an important issue.
Yes. Let me just ask you structurally, because I ran out of time to ask you this on TV, Scott, and I wanted to reflect on it with you. Structurally, do you think that globalization takes a hit once again? Clearly, it took a hit from all of the trade tensions between the US and China. Does it take a hit from the coronavirus as well? Because some politicians might be quick to jump on the idea that you need to shut borders and build up domestic suppliers And some of that will be politically motivated, and some of that will be, very well-founded concerns about supply chains. So how do you think that will play out?
I think the supply chain thing is a very, very big deal. And it's both near-term and long-term, right? So the near-term is the virus issue. So factually, right, you cannot produce the things you need to produce because you can't get the parts of the supply chain that you need. So there's a factual shutdown that's going on, and that's impacting, Apple iPhones or whatever, and other parts of the economy. That is a very near-term issue, which again, depending on the V or U or L-shaped recovery, could be meaningful or not meaningful. But I think the second part of this, which is something we had talked about before, is the impact of the U.S. trade policy generally. China is a big part of it, but other countries are also part of that. And so this idea that supply chain disruption, deglobalization, is an important theme in the markets going forward. Part of the reason why at the beginning of the year we had flagged up inflation risk, because if you recall from your economics 101 class, right, this is a supply side shock, which means higher prices. Obviously, market's not focused on that right now, and I appreciate that. But longer term, the supply side kind of the shock to kind of supply chains and globalization, I think is a really important theme going forward, but obviously not for what markets are focused on now. But I think this idea about supply chains and deglobalization has very many layers, and the first one obviously is the virus.
Very interesting. Thank you so much for joining us here on Bloomberg Radio. Scott Teal, Chief Fixed Income Strategist at BlackRock.
Now let's get the latest in global news. Here's Bloomberg's Leanne Gerrans.
We've got more on that top story. Anna and Caroline were discussing the numbers of coronavirus cases in China have risen above 77,000. The nation is postponing its annual legislative meeting, but the virus is also spreading further afield. South Korea now has over 750 confirmed infections. The nation's president putting it on the highest level of alert. And Italy has become the epicenter here in Europe with over 150 cases. The country has cancelled the Venice Carnival and is studying stimulus measures. President Trump says he's optimistic the US and China can reach a, quote, great trade deal. That's as he announced the two countries are set to sign a deal worth $3 billion in military sales. It comes during his official visit to India. He spoke at the Namaste Trump event. Later, he's set to visit the Taj Mahal. Let's cross over to Germany, where Chancellor Angela Merkel's party has plunged to a record low in a state election in Hamburg yesterday. Voters were giving their first verdict on the crisis consuming the Christian Democrats. Bloomberg's Patrick Donahue has all those details.
The CDU fell to just above 11% in the German port city, while the Social Democrats secured a victory and support for the Greens surged. The CDU has been hobbled since Merkel's heir apparent, Annegret Kramp-Karrenbauer, this month scrapped her ambitions to replace the German leader. Merkel has said she'll step down after the next election, which is next autumn at the latest. In Berlin, Patrick Donahue, Bloomberg Daybreak, Europe.
And voting is beginning in the contest to replace Jeremy Corbyn as Labour leader. Members and supporters are getting their ballots this week, with the successor finally announced on the 4th of April. Keir Starmer, Lisa Nandy and Rebecca Long-Bailey have all said they would give jobs in the shadow cabinet to their rivals if they win. And Rebecca Long-Bailey says if she loses, she will be happy to serve.
Keir and Lisa are brilliant, and we all get on with each other in real life, despite what you might see on Twitter or anywhere else. But I would be happy to serve under any of their leaderships, and I know that as you as members would expect the same thing.
Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Leanne Gerrans. This is Bloomberg. Caroline.
Thank you so much, Leanne Gerrans, there with the world news. Now the morning sports news with that fantastic win by England in the rugby. Here's Colin Besley.
England are second in Rugby Union's Six Nations this morning after beating Ireland 24-12 at Twickenham yesterday. Tries from George Ford, Elliot Daly and Luke Cowan-Dickey contributed to the impressive win. Captain Owen Farrell was happy with England's first half performance especially.
Very constant, and that shows in the way that we prepare. That gives us the confidence to play like that, and we're brilliant to be back at Twickenham. Everyone saw that in the way that we play.
Liverpool can restore their 22-point lead at the top of the Premier League table with a win over West Ham tonight. The teams meet at Anfield with the visitors looking for a victory to take them out of the relegation zone. Meanwhile, Manchester United are fifth this morning after a 3-0 win over struggling Watford at Old Trafford. Wolves beat bottom side Norwich by the same score, and Arsenal overcame Everton 3-2 in an entertaining encounter in North London. Celtic are 12 points clear at the top of the Scottish Premiership, and Exeter already have an 8-point advantage at the top of Rugby Union's Premiership. The leaders continued their dominant start to the season by running in 8 tries as they thrashed Northampton 57-7.
Okay, so that's your European sports roundup. Still ahead on Bloomberg Daybreak Europe with Anna Edwards and myself. We're going to dissect the IFO data with Professor Timo Volmershauer, who is the head of IFO's business cycle analysis and forecast. What does the latest data tell us about the health of Germany's economy? Obviously, fears about recession in Germany and how much can be done in the face of coronavirus as that impacts the markets this morning. We see Euro Stoxx 600 currently down 3.2%. This is Bloomberg.
Message and data rate may apply. T&C and privacy terms can be found at babbel.com/terms. Please don't text and drive.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then try Babbel for free by texting EXPLORE to 64,000. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just text EXPLORE to 64,000 and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or text EXPLORE to 64,000 and try it for free. Text EXPLORE to 64,000.
Hello, I'm here to tell you that age really does bring wisdom, and you may still have plenty to contribute. At Eisner-Amper, we're successful at helping business owners and entrepreneurs assess and plan for the future, as well as maximize where you are in the present. If you're curious about how to plan for both your professional and personal future, come and talk to us. I'm Lisa Stewart, principal in charge of the Center for Family Business Excellence, and I'd love to help you to find the right path forward. You can find us at eisneramper.com/family.
My mother was always very active and independent, and she was familiar with her neighborhood. But one day, she stopped at the stop sign for much longer than usual. She wasn't even really sure where she was at.
It's important for you to talk to someone about it. I felt so much better after my son told me, Mom, we'll figure it out.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Influential conversations from Bloomberg Television. Here's Emily Chang.
While his Democratic rivals are fighting to secure endorsements and delegates, President Trump has nailed a coveted election prize, advertising on YouTube's homepage. Bloomberg's learned that Trump's campaign ads will take over the YouTube masthead on Election Day and in the immediate run-up. Think of it as the digital equivalent of a Super Bowl TV ad that'll hit a wide swath of people at exactly the right time. Joining us from Washington to discuss, Michael Beckel, research director of Issue One, a nonpartisan group advocating for more transparency in campaign spending. How big a deal is getting the YouTube masthead on Election Day, given that there are other opportunities, other ad outlets out there, but this is a big one?
This is absolutely a significant development. This is the Trump campaign taking advantage of their resources to put money down early to secure very valuable real estate online. And it also demonstrates a way that campaigns are trying more and more to reach people online. Broadcast TV and radio aren't reaching as many people as in elections past, so they are turning over every rock on the internet to be able to go to where the people are. And a lot of people are going to be on YouTube in the days up to Election Day.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings.
Markets, headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app and on QuickTake by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg's European headquarters in London, I'm Sandra Kilhoff with this Bloomberg Radio Business Flash. Now, it's a sea of red across European equities this morning. We're seeing U.S. futures also significantly lower following a down day in Asia. It is the spread of the coronavirus outside of China that's fueling concerns of a global pandemic, in particular sending the FTSE MIB down more than 4% in Italy. It follows 2 fatalities in the country over the weekend because of that outbreak. We've seen
The DAX slide 3 7/10%. The FTSE and Stock 600, also down more than 3%. Now that risk-off mood is really boosting gold this morning, currently up more than 2.5% at $1,685 a troy ounce. Otherwise, we are seeing commodities taking quite a hit today. Oil currently down 3.5%. WTI trading at $51 a barrel. We're seeing copper sliding 1.5%. Corn, wheat and soybeans all lower as well. In currencies, I'm keeping an eye on Asian currencies in particular. The Aussie dollar, the Kiwi dollar, both down 0.4%. The Korean won near a 2016 low, down 0.9%. We're seeing the offshore yuan back above that 7 level, continuing its slide. Now, sterling is also seeing a bit of a down day, down 0.3%. The euro down 0.2%. But havens are bid. The Bloomberg dollar spot index up 0.3%. Dollar yen also gaining 0.3% to 111.3. This is also being felt in the bond markets. We're seeing 10-year treasury yields now down 9 basis points, sliding below 140. So currently at 139. That's the 10-year yield. We're seeing 10-year bund yield sliding 6 basis points below 50 at negative 49 basis points now. 10-year gilt yields also down at 52 basis points. Quite a bit of movement there in the markets. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. And here's Leanne Garens with more on what's going on around the world.
Sandra, thank you. We start with some breaking news this hour. The Chief Medical Officer, Professor Chris Whitty, he has a statement at the moment and he's saying 4 new cases of COVID-19, that's the coronavirus, have been reported from the Diamond Princess cruise ship. And as we remember, people came in from that. It was in Japan. We'll bring you more on that news as we get it throughout the morning. Meanwhile, Malaysian Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad has resigned. This development comes after rumours swirled that he was trying to reconfigure the ruling coalition without Anwar Ibrahim, the man who was expected to succeed him. Anwar and Mahathir joined forces to win Malaysia's 2018 elections on the promise Anwar would eventually take over. In Iran, the nation's hardliners have won parliamentary elections. According to state media, conservatives swept the votes in Tehran and other key cities. That's amid the instability and economic damage triggered by US sanctions. The expectation is that President Rouhani will now largely be sidelined. And the Turkish, Russian, German and French leaders are meeting in early March to try to find a solution to the crisis in the Syrian province of Idlib. This comes as Turkey and Russian-backed Syrian forces risk confrontation in the region. As Turkey slides towards war, Ankara has appealed to the US and its European allies for support in that conflict. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Leanne Garens. This is Bloomberg.
Thanks very much, Leanne. We are digesting this latest news around the number of coronavirus cases. The total now at 13 then, Caroline, with some being brought back from that cruise ship off Japan, testing negative when they were there. Otherwise, they weren't allowed to come back to the UK. Now testing positive, but of course in quarantine.
Yes, they are in quarantine in the Wirral and in other parts of the NHS. So yes, these people returning back, obviously very, very difficult moment as we also look at Europe and some 150 cases of coronavirus in Italy.
Yeah, indeed. So that's the coronavirus certainly having a really big impact on the markets right now. Certainly when we look at what's happening on European equity markets, the Stock 600 down by 3.3%, the FTSE 100 down 3%, the FTSE MIB taking the brunt down by just over 4%.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the data that we had out this morning from the IFO survey. So for February, German business confidence, the index came in at 96.1, so that was just slightly above the 95.3 number that we were estimating. Let's bring in our Bloomberg reporter on this story right now, who joins us down the line. Just tell us exactly what the index actually shows, because there are several components, aren't there, to the IFO this morning?
Good morning, yes. So we have the overall business climate number rose slightly. We were expecting a slight decline, so this, on the surface is good news. The expectations index, which is one a lot of people look at because it's how businesses are thinking about the next 6, 9 and 12 months, also rose. Again, good news on the surface, and we saw a little pickup in the euro. But we do have to remember that this index is coming from a very low level. At the end of 2019, the IFO gauge, closely watched in Germany and across Europe, was back at the lowest since 2009. So the pickup we've seen in the last couple of months, while good, still leaves it well below where it had been in recent years. And the other thing to point out as well is that there was a fairly sizable increase in the manufacturing component. And again, this has been at a very low level.
Yeah,
so,
indeed.
I mean, it was overdue that we were probably going to get some kind of a pickup at some point, you would think.
Overdue, and certainly people have been looking for it for a long time, hadn't they, Fergal? Looking for some kind of bounce back. I suppose with what we're seeing in equity markets and the focus on coronavirus in Italy, that stock market down by 4.2%, this is a measure of business sentiment, and you wonder how robust that is going to be in the face of this kind of equity market sell-off that we're seeing today. It reminds you that this could even be a little backward-looking.
Absolutely. There's an element here that we were still maybe a little bit of hope after we got the phase 1 trade deal lingering here. But yes, these numbers are weak, and it might not take much to tip them back in the other direction again. And you're right, this may be backward looking. As you point out, stocks this morning are reacting off the latest news coming out of Italy, and that seems to be the dominant theme. If that carries over into next month, then the EFO could start to wobble again. We've already seen it in the PMIs as well. Last week we looked better than expected, but again there were signs that maybe if the virus continues to creep through the global economy, that those numbers as well will start to turn.
Okay, Fergal, thank you so much for joining us this morning. That's Fergal O'Brien, Bloomberg's European economy reporter there on the IFO index. Of course, we get German GDP out on Tuesday, so that will be another key indicator when it comes to the German economy.
Yeah, indeed. A big focus on Italy, though, today. Still ahead on Bloomberg Daybreak Europe, Caroline. The coronavirus hits Italy as cases in the country climb to above 150. We'll go live to Milan next to get an update. A reminder, you can listen back to all our interviews at bloombergradio.com or on your Bloomberg Business app. This is Bloomberg.
With a Bloomberg Business of Sports report, I'm Michael Barr. Players on the U.S. women's national team are seeking more than $66 million in damages as part of their gender discrimination lawsuit against the U.S. Soccer Federation. The damages were included in papers filed in U.S. District Court in Los Angeles ahead of a trial scheduled to start May 5th. Players on the women's national team sued the Federation last March, alleging institutionalized gender discrimination that includes inequitable compensation between the men's and women's teams. The timing and terms of the National Football League's proposed labor contract suggest that management's principal goal is to entice media companies like Walt Disney and Fox into paying billions more for the rights to show live games. Owners approved an outline of an offer to players that includes a 17th regular season game and 2 additional playoff games, satisfying broadcasters. And that's a Bloomberg Business of Sports report. I'm Michael Barr. The Bloomberg Business of Sports podcast. How did the Yankees become this mega valuable team? Where the money is flowing inside sports around the globe.
From the marketing perspective, where are the dollars spent?
From union heads to team owners, Scott Soshnick and Michael Barr speak to the names that power this multi-billion-dollar industry. Boston Red Sox CEO Sam Kennedy.
National Hockey League Commissioner Gary Bettman.
Bloomberg Business of Sports. Listen today on Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, or subscribe on Apple Podcasts.
Witham offers an elite team of seasoned specialists providing world-class advisory, audit, and tax solutions to the financial services industry.
Hi, I'm Tom Angel, partner and practice leader of Witham's Financial Services Group. Witham is a nationally recognized advisory and accounting firm serving private equity, venture capital, hedge funds, broker-dealers, 40 Act funds, and SPACs. We provide customized support to our clients, especially emerging managers. Our deep experience and expertise makes Witham the firm of choice in the financial service industry.
Visit Witham.com to contact a member of Witham's Financial Services.
For centuries, Welsh farmers have been perfecting the balance between maintaining the spectacular landscapes of Wales while producing delicious lamb and beef. Lucky for us, we have everything we need from the elements: grass, rainwater, and a whole lot of pride. Sustainability is key as we continue to work in harmony with our surroundings to bring you a plate that's uniquely Welsh. It's in the taste. Learn more at eatwelshlamandwelshbeef.com.
Want an easier way to run your business and take payments? You want Square. Whatever your business, sync it all together seamlessly with Square's integrated point-of-sale software, hardware, and e-commerce tools to make sure everything's square at the end of the month. Square is there whether you're taking payments for Square meals or Square extensions, squaring off your account, squaring up with your supplier, trading in Cathedral Square, or invoicing clients in Leicester Square. With no long-term contracts, no wonder millions of businesses around the globe have gone Square. Visit square.com/UK to learn more. And go Square. Authorised by the Financial Conduct Authority for the provision of payment services.
What am I saving for? My passion. Food photography.
I'd train to be a landscape garden designer.
Open a food stall and sell my famous fish tacos.
I'd go to stuntman school.
I'd be a wedding planner.
I'd start a dog grooming business. Sorry, we'd start a dog grooming business.
What are you waiting for? Make your one day happen with a Fidelity Stocks and Shares ISA. Your capital is at risk. Tax rules may change. Full terms for our Stocks and Shares ISA are available on our website, 18+ UK residents.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
Despite never having used them, Alison Peartree was not initially a fan of purple bricks.
Because I heard from my uncle's cousin's neighbour's dog walker they don't have proper estate agents.
But Alison's uncle's cousin's neighbour's dog walker was wrong. Purple bricks have experienced local agents ready to sell your home.
Turns out Martin from Purple Bricks was very knowledgeable. And he didn't charge commission. I've even recommended him to my sister's boyfriend's auntie's hairdresser, Sharon.
Purple Bricks. Book your free valuation today.
Fixed fee payable on instruction or after 10 months. Viewing service cost extra.
What do you do to be an everyday superhero, like Mary?
So I know it's tempting to pour used cooking oil straight down the sink, but I spoke to the local council and they said the best way to get rid of oil or fat is to collect it, once it's cooled down, of course, in a used container. And then you can scoop it out and put it in the bin.
Cooking oils and fats block thousands of pipes every year. Save our sewers, rivers and seas by putting them in the bin, where they belong. Visit thameswater.co.uk/bin it. Together, we can care for the environment.
Broadcasting live to London on DAB Digital Radio, to New York, Bloomberg 1130, to Washington DC, Bloomberg 99.1, to Boston, Bloomberg 106.1, to San Francisco, Bloomberg 960, and around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
It's 9:30 a.m. here in London, 10:30 across Europe. Very good morning. I'm Caroline Hepker.
And I'm Anna Edwards. You're listening to Bloomberg Daybreak Europe. And what a day it is on these markets. So let's check that data for you. We are down by 3.4% on the Stock 600 right now. The FTSE 100 down by 3.2%. This is all just in the first hour and a half of trading. So these are moves on the day. The CAC 40 down by 3.7%. The DAX down by 3.8%. The FTSE MIB, important to check that one, down by 4.4%. And this is in the wake of the escalating level of coronavirus infections that we're seeing in Italy and the actions being taken by the Italian authorities to put a cordon essentially around an area of around 50,000 people near Milan to try and stop the spread of coronavirus in Italy and then further afield in Europe, of course. US futures also continue to point downwards, so it looks as if the fear of coronavirus becoming more global and having more of a global impact economically is going to be front and center for US investors as well. E-mini futures down by 2.6%, Dow futures down 2.5%, Nasdaq futures down by 3.2%. In terms of the sectors, no sectors in Europe in positive territory, all in negative territory. Of course, autos and anything related to the global trading environment and potential for disruption of supply chains, all of those sectors feeling most of the pressure. We see money going into havens, so Treasuries a bid. The yield on the US 10-year is 1.38%, so that's come down substantially once again from Friday's levels. We see money going into gold. 1686 is where we trade on the gold price, up by 2.6% for that haven. And the dollar haven is up a little as well, up by 0.3% on the dollar, 99.53 on the dollar index.
Okay, well, let's delve deep into a story that dropped on the Bloomberg terminal just this morning. The mood among German business hasn't been dramatically shaken, it would seem, by the coronavirus outbreak. The closely watched IFO Confidence Index unexpectedly rose this month, as did a measure of expectations. Well, I'm pleased to say, for more on this, we can bring in Professor Timo Vollmershauer, who is the head of IFO's Business Cycle cycle analysis and forecasts, who joins us live from Munich. A very good morning to you, Professor. Thank you so much for joining us. Look, this survey data, though, is perhaps a little bit backward looking. Are we seeing some of the impact from the coronavirus on German business, or do we have to wait a little bit for it to come through?
I think that we have to wait still a little bit. This survey was done in the first 2 weeks of February. There was a lot of discussion going on already at the beginning of February about the coronavirus, but it's clear that during this month, the news that we got are getting, more dramatic. But as you said, it's really coming as a surprise that in particular the expectations component of German industries, of German manufacturing industries, did not decline at all. The opposite was true. It was increasing. And if anything, I would have expected that the impact of the coronavirus would be on the expectations component. But so far, there is nothing that we can see at this component.
Timo, good morning. Is there a risk the German economy slips into recession because of the epidemic, or what are your expectations for German growth, the most up-to-date expectations?
Up to date, I would say that there is no risk of a recession at the moment. So our estimate for the first quarter is 0.2 after stagnation in the fourth quarter. So I would say that recession is not an issue. So far, the industry, or the part of the German economy which is definitely still in recession, is the manufacturing industry. But if you look a bit closer into the data that we got today, I think that even in January we will have an increase in production. So for the moment, for the data that we have, I would say there is no risk of a recession.
Okay, so no risk of a recession. In that case, what about measures to prop up the German economy? Can there should there be something done, and can there be, with the German government, be something that can be done about propping up the German economy?
The German government has already done a lot. We are still in a period where the coalition is working, and a lot of things have been decided by the Grand Coalition. And these decisions, they are giving a lot of stimulus to the German economy. So tax reliefs, investment programs, and so forth. And this is also the reason why I think that recession is currently not an issue, because the domestic part of the economy, this is where all this fiscal stimulus is mainly addressed to, is doing quite well. So we have a booming construction sector. We have still good consumption data. So all the service sector. So this is where, let's say, the main part of the stimulus is going to. And this part of the economy is doing well. The only part that is not doing well is the industry sector. And it's also clear that this industry sector has not benefited at all for the moment from these fiscal stimulus.
And Timo, just briefly, the problems with industry, is this a cyclical problem or a structural one?
Both, I would say both. There is a lack of demand at the moment. This is due to all these things having to do with Brexit, trade war. But if you look into the automotive sector, then this is a structural change going on there. So I think this will last a bit longer than the cyclical problems that we currently have.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us this morning and for your work. That's Professor Timo Vollmershauer, who is the head of IFO's Business Cycle Analysis and Forecasts.
Now, we talked a little about the impact of coronavirus there on the German economy. Let's talk about what it's doing in Italy right now. Cases outside China have surged, intensifying concerns of a global pandemic. That's as cases in South Korea have jumped 20-fold to more than 750 in the past week, and it reported 2 more fatalities. Meanwhile, Italy has become the European epicenter as it confirms over 150 cases and 3 deaths. For more, let's go live to Milan, where Bloomberg's Gerald Colton is standing by. Gerald, good to speak to you. So a lot of the conversation over the weekend must still be around the very immediate measures needed to try and put a cordon around this. Run us through what's being done.
Well, good morning. Some 40 kilometers south of here in Milan, there's a string of towns in the province of Lodi where there's a virtual lockdown going on right now. Economic activity has pretty much ground to a halt in that area. People are not being allowed in and out. There's law enforcement keeping people from leaving or people from coming in, and word that possibly the military will also get involved. So that part of the country is basically shut down, while here in Milan there are other measures being taken to curb the spread of the virus.
Look, this is an absolutely dramatic step, surely, in Europe to try to lock down 50,000 people. Do we think this measure is actually going to work? Is it going to help? And you know, how tight is that cordon, I guess, my question?
Well, the cordon around the afflicted towns is quite tight indeed. We've had some contact with people inside there. It does seem like they're not able to leave and nobody's able to go in. As for the rest of the northern region, which is, you know, the economic heartland of the country, I mean, you can visibly see that there is less contact between people than there would be normally. I'm looking out my window right now onto one of the busier streets of the city, and it's virtually deserted. There's no traffic either on the sidewalks or on the streets. All public activity, public events have been closed, including sports events, cultural events. Bars are being told to close their doors at 6 p.m. rather than staying open late at night. So there, you know, in terms of people's ability to infect each other, there's definitely less contact than there would be normally.
Gerald, thank you very much. Bloomberg's Gerald Colton. Apologies for the line there, but calling into us from Milan with the latest insights on the ground in Italy.
Yeah, very, very fascinating to get that insight about what's going on. Let's get all the latest, though, in global news headlines. It's Bloomberg's Leanne Gerrans. Good morning.
Caroline, good morning. President Trump says he's optimistic the US and India can reach a, quote, great trade deal. That's as he announced the two countries are set to sign a deal worth $3 billion in military sales. It comes during his official visit to India. He spoke at a Namaste Trump event. Later, he's set to visit the Taj Mahal. Now to the political turmoil in Malaysia. Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad has resigned. This development comes after rumours swirled that he was trying to reconfigure the ruling coalition without Anwar Ibrahim, the man who was expected to succeed him. Anwar and Mohamad joined forces to win Malaysia's 2018 elections on the promise Anwar would take over within 2 years. Let's go to Iran, where hardliners and conservatives were widely predicted to win a decisive majority in parliament re-elections, and they did so based on record low turnout. From Tehran, Bloomberg's Arsalna Shala reports.
They won't take their seats until June, and so President Hassan Rouhani has his work cut out if he wants to rush any legislation before they arrive and get to work stalling his remaining plans. But their victory marks the start of a new political cycle in Iran, one characterized by greater defiance against US policies and hostility to engagement with the West. In Tehran, Arsalan Shahla, Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
And in Nevada, Bernie Sanders seized a lead in the Democratic race to take on President Trump. The Vermont senator did well with Hispanic and black voters, undercutting criticism his supporters mostly young, white and disaffected. It sets him up to do well in Texas and California on Super Tuesday. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Leanne Gerrans. This is Bloomberg. Anna.
Thanks very much, Leanne. Coming up on Bloomberg Daybreak Europe, we'll speak to Tim Graff, head of EMEA macro strategy at State Street. We're looking at European equity markets heavily selling off on coronavirus. This is Bloomberg.
1 in 3 adults has pre-diabetes. 1 in 3. That means it could be you, your football buddy, your football buddy, or you, your best man, your worst man, you, your dog walker, your cat jogger. While 1 in 3 adults has pre-diabetes, with early diagnosis, pre-diabetes can be reversed. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its pre-diabetes awareness partners.
Are you looking for senior care for your mom or dad but don't know where to start? Hi, I'm Joan London with The Place for Mom. Nobody knows your parent or loved one better than you, and nobody knows senior living better than the experts at A Place for Mom. It's a free service, and we've helped thousands of families find the right place for their mom or dad. There's a place for answers, A Place for Mom. Call today.
Call A Place for Mom at 1-800-391-1755. That's 1-800-391-1755.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. I came out in the 11th grade. Nobody was embracing you. The kids were cruel. It was very difficult to be gay. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma. The hard part was determining determining that I was going to do it. But I definitely didn't do it alone.
At age 30, with the help of her mentor, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
I have a mentor, Maria. She convinced me to continue my education and to finish what I started to get my diploma. Just never judges. She's a true role model. If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, go get it. You can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the...
A new day, a new skyline. Who doesn't love a city break in the sun? Markets, museums, and those little cafe moments where you just take it all in. But imagine if you could just stroll from ship to shore into a different city every day. And as dusk falls, your sanctuary awaits at anchor for you to dine, dance, or simply stargaze as you set sail from one shore to discover another. That's a world away. That's the Mediterranean by Cunard. Discover more at cunard.com. APTA and Atoll protected.
Pancake Day is flipping fun. Pancake Day is Stella. This day will be a yummy one. 'Cause pancakes love Nutella.
Pancake Day is nearly here. Gather friends and family to enjoy some delicious pancakes on Tuesday the 25th of February. And don't forget, pancakes love Nutella.
The Mona Lisa is only 30 inches tall. The world's hottest chili, 1 inch. And Napoleon, taller than a Great Dane, but only by 71 centimetres. Who says small can't make an impact? The Peugeot 108 Allure is now available for just $159 per month, with $159 initial rental. Our small but mighty car that doesn't have to cost you a small fortune. Peugeot Motor Company PLC, a credit broker not a lender, will introduce you to PSA Finance UK Limited. Personal finance lease, 48 months at 159, 18 plus, guarantee may be required. Terms, eligibility and return conditions apply. You will not own the car.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
A lot of people aren't aware that TuneIn lets you listen to the same terrestrial stations that you pick up on your FM AM dial, except you can hear them from anywhere. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
Ah, finally another commercial, said no one ever. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade now and get over 45 commercial-free music stations.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip Bayless.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg Business Week, now live on YouTube. Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies? Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers.
Why is delivering the best client experience a top priority at BNY Mellon's Pershing? Michelle Feinstein, Director of Client Engagement, explains.
Today's investors want a financial relationship that's on demand, customized, and leverages the latest digital technology. At BNY Mellon's Pershing, helping advisory firms and broker-dealers create great experiences for their clients is our priority. Through our integrated wealth experience, we give you a high-touch service, flexible technology choices, and expert insights, so you can deliver a highly personalized experience to your clients at every step. from onboarding to wealth planning, to performance analysis and more. And because we're part of BNY Mellon, you'll benefit from more than 230 years of strength and stability. At Pershing, we're personally invested in your success.
Visit Pershing.com to learn more about Pershing's integrated wealth experience. Pershing LLC and Pershing Advisor Solutions LLC are both members of FINRA and SIPC.
Markets, headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app and on QuickTake by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg's European headquarters in London, I'm Sandra Kilhoff with this Bloomberg Radio Business Flash. Now, it's a sea of red across European equities this morning, with US futures also significantly lower. The coronavirus continues to spread outside of China. It's really fueling concerns of a global pandemic, setting the FTSE MIB down more than 4% in Italy following 2 fatalities in the country over the weekend. The DAX sliding 3.5%, and the stock 600 also falling 3.5%. 2016. Commodities are feeling the brunt of the virus impact today. We're seeing oil down more than 3.5%, with WTI at $51 a barrel. Copper slipping 1%. Wheat, corn and soybeans all weaker as well. Gold, meanwhile, enjoying quite a haven bid, rallying 2.5%, currently at $1,684 a troy ounce. That flight to safety sending 10-year Treasury yields down below 1.4%, currently down 8 basis points at 1.39. 10-year bund yields down 6 basis points at negative 50. 10-year gilt yields also down 6 basis points at 51 basis points. In currencies, the Aussie dollar has hit a fresh 11-year low, falling 0.5%. The Korean won is close to its 2016 lows, now down 0.9%. The offshore yuan extending its slide, trading well above 7. Otherwise, we are seeing havens bid. The yen up 0.3% at 111.3. The Bloomberg dollar spot index up 0.4%. We're seeing sterling weaker by 0.5%, just below 129. The euro down 0.2%. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Leanne Garens with more on what's going on around the world.
Sandra, thank you. China's adding to the confusion over the coronavirus. Earlier today, it announced that the quarantine of the city of Wuhan had been eased. But now authorities say that announcement was issued without approval from top officials. Wuhan is the center of the epidemic. It's been sealed off since January the 23rd. There are now almost 80,000 confirmed cases of coronavirus. More than 2,600 people have died. Now to Germany. Chancellor Angela Merkel's CDU hit a post-war low in a state election in Hamburg. That's as voters gave their first verdict on political turmoil in Germany. That's appended her succession plans. The city's state governing Social Democrats secured a clear victory, but the biggest gainer was the Green Party. And South Africa's budget this week is unlikely to convince Moody's that it can rein in government debt. Most economists expect the rating agency to downgrade the country to junk this year, and many think it will happen in the first 6 months. Bailouts have made it even harder for the nation to take control of its debt pile. South Africa growing at less than 1% a year. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on QuickTake by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Leanne Garens. This is Bloomberg. Caroline.
Thank you so much, Leanne Garens, with the world news. Now, coming up next, our colleagues in the United States are getting ready for Bloomberg Daybreak. So let's check in with Nathan Hager. Good morning, Nathan. What's ahead for you?
Well, we're going to be continuing to follow this broad wave of selling around the world with new worries about coronavirus cases outside China, particularly in South Korea, Italy, and Iran, having a ripple effect on risk assets around the world, raising new concerns about the economic toll of a disease that seems to show little sign of slowing. Now, we have team coverage from the newest viral hotspots, and we will get analysis of the violent market reaction this morning from Patrick Palfrey at Credit Suisse, as well as Michael Hewson from CMC Markets. They'll join us on the show this morning. Plus, we will have more on President Trump's trip to India, a huge welcome for the president in India, and he's just announced a weapons deal with Prime Minister Modi, but can the two sides get anything substantial done on trade? We'll take a look at that as Karen Moscow and I get you set this morning for Bloomberg Daybreak Americas. Hope you'll join us for it. Caroline.
Great. Thank you so much, Nathan. Bloomberg Daybreak, of course, is up next. And if you're listening on London DAB Digital Radio, you'll hear Bloomberg Surveillance. Let's continue where Nathan left off there, really talking about the spread of coronavirus and what it's doing to assets in Europe. Equities, metals and oil have dropped, while haven assets like gold are rallying amid growing concerns of a global pandemic. Let's talk to Tim Graff, head of EMEA macro strategy at State Street. Good morning to you, Tim. Of course, the first thought's always about the human tragedy of all of this, whether in China or now into Italy. But in terms of the market response here, are you surprised to see the extent of selling we see on the FTSE MIB today, down by 4.3%?
Not particularly. I think the resilience of markets, or at least the seemingly impervious nature that they've shown, despite what we know to be a very serious risk, was always, I think, that the virus was contained to China, and we were looking at figures outside of China, and they weren't really accelerating. And now that's the case, and particularly somewhere like Italy, where, under the Schengen Agreement, you have open borders. You have a lot less assumed control over borders just by virtue of law. So it's therefore, unless you're willing to go against that, which it seems like, the news overnight from Austria might be that they are willing to go against that. But unless more countries are willing to do that, it does seem to be a problem that has less natural containment to it, where in China you can put cities on lockdown.
Yes. I mean, one EU commissioner was saying overnight there are provisions within Schengen to suspend temporarily some of the arrangements, but they are not thinking of doing that right now. Yeah. It's in the hands of European countries.
That's right. And there is still this openness to Europe that I think is what's being prized. And particularly, given this was the year we were starting to see, or we were thinking we're going to see green shoots coming from Europe after the trade-related slowdown last year, you had a lot of good news priced into European equities last year. And so now you're getting the reverse of that. And like all markets, when there's momentum on the way up, there's momentum on the way down too.
Okay, so Europe then is definitely, in your view, the sort of second-order loser after Asia?
It typically, with last year as the template, absolutely. I think that's how this could potentially play out. And even if there weren't cases in Italy, you could potentially see that playing out just in European demand via the export sector anyway, because we know growth in Asia is going to be revised lower this year, and Europe is the second order effect of that, it seems, anyway. And then you layer this story on top of it, and it's all the worse for that.
From the market's perspective, I guess you're looking at the policy response. Well, you're looking at the virus itself and where it spreads. Then you're looking at the policy response from whether that's fiscal actors or monetary policy. But you're also looking in the very short term, I suppose, at any liquidity measures that might need to be put in place. Is that something that maybe can take the edge off some of the market moves, Tim?
It certainly has so far, when you consider what China has done. And I suspect that's another reason why, to date, markets have remained relatively impervious to this threat. I say relatively, of course, today that's not the case. But liquidity measures like that, or movements on monetary policy, this morning we're starting to price the Fed acting a little bit more soon. We're starting to price the ECB cutting rates by 10 basis points, whatever that's worth. We're starting to bring forward potential plans for fiscal policy, or to bring to life potential plans for fiscal policy, which in Europe's case might be a way out of this, and might help break through some political sclerosis. We're still a long ways from that, but I think that's how markets have thought about this, is that there will be a response, and just what is the nature of the recovery then?
Yeah, indeed. What about then emerging markets? Because, I still hear from a lot of guests that they remain very favourable when it comes to emerging market assets. You're a little more sceptical, it seems.
There are emerging markets with policy bullets to fire, and then there are emerging markets that have already fired quite a few. You think of somewhere like Brazil, which has been in a rate cutting cycle, and where real rates now are already zero. Do they have a lot left? Potentially. They have fiscal space, and bond markets would probably not look on that too disfavorably. But then you consider somewhere like Mexico, where real interest rates are relatively high. They do have some policy space. Fiscal fundamentals are pretty friendly there, as they are in markets like Russia or in Indonesia. So you have some potential relative winners, but then you have the North Asian economies that are very heavily export dependent, that are right in the crosshairs of this virus, where rates are already low. You do have past surpluses that have accumulated that will help, but where assets have been attached significant premium over recent years already. And so I think as last year it was the case, I think relative value within emerging markets will probably remain the case.
And Tim, we talked a little about this with Scott Teal of BlackRock earlier, about whether globalization is going to come under attack once again because of this virus. And I'm drawn to think about that as I see my colleagues writing about how volatility bets on ETFs tracking tech stocks have jumped to levels not seen for 2 years, and they've jumped a lot more than other sectors. And it's that kind of sector that's sort of sourced globally with supply chains that are very complex and geographically spread, that makes you wonder whether this is going to have a lasting impact on the shape of the globalized economy and the extent of globalization.
It's a great question. I wish I had a really good answer for it. I suspect
easier to ask.
Yeah, will globalization reverse? I don't know about reverse completely, but will it slow, or will there be a kind of inflection point? The answer to that is probably already yes. We saw that again last year with breakdowns in trade relationships that we'd kind of taken for granted for a long time. And there may be now a movement more towards more onshoring of activities, reversing the last 30 or 40 years. Will it be a complete reversal? Probably not. We've probably crossed that Rubicon and aren't likely to go back 100%. But in the name of risk management, will corporates think about this a little bit more? I suspect so, because I suspect this also won't be the last type of virus we're going to think about in the next 20 or 30 years, and businesses will think that probably as well.
Yeah, look, just this morning, looking at Primark, which is owned by AB Foods here in the UK, having to think again about their supply chain. Obviously, they're a big fashion house, so, just one of the names sort of having to think about it a little bit more. Thank you so much, Tim Goff, Head of EMEA Macro Strategy at State Street. Thank you so much for joining us here in the London radio studio. Should we end with something of a data check, given how much markets have moved and how quickly in the first couple of hours here in Europe?
Yeah, we should, shouldn't we? So the FTSE MIB in Italy down by 4.1%, the IBEX in Spain 3.2% lower, the DAX down 3.5%, the CAC down 3.5%, the FTSE off 3%, the Stock 600 as a whole down by 3.3%. And worth pointing out, those are on-the-day moves, Caroline. Yeah. US futures also looking weak.
Yeah, all of the sectors in Europe selling off right now. At the bottom of the pile, it's all of the airline names: EasyJet, Ryanair, Air France, and TUI, the holiday package company. So that's where we stand in terms of the markets. Plenty more here on Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
Do you go on the same holiday every year? To the same country, in the same hotel, with the same sea view, visit the same ancient monuments, play by the same dolphin-shaped pool, meet the same Barrys and Sandras, and wear the same Hawaiian shirt that you'd never wear at home? Then maybe it's time to switch it up. Starting with the all-new Vauxhall Corsa, with its bold styling and up to 70 miles per gallon. To switch it up, visit your local Vauxhall dealership or search New Corsa. Official WLTP test figures for comparison purposes only. Real-world figures may vary.
The world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio.
Live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studios, this is Bloomberg Daybreak for Monday, February 24th, 2020. Coming up this hour.
Global stocks plunge as the coronavirus spreads worldwide.
Cases surge in South Korea and Italy, with 50,000 people on lockdown near Milan.
Gold surges, oil tumbles, and Treasury yields plummet as 30-year yields hit a record low.
India gives a big welcome to President Trump.
To every citizen across this nation, America loves India.
I'm Michael Barr. More ahead.
I'm John Stashower on sports. A win for the Islanders. They beat the Sharks at the Coliseum. College basketball, Seton Hall routed St. John's. Rutgers lost at Wisconsin.
That's all straight ahead on Bloomberg Daybreak. On Bloomberg 1130 New York. Bloomberg 99.1 Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 106.1 Boston. Bloomberg 960 San Francisco. Sirius XM 119. And around the world on BloombergRadio.com and via the Bloomberg Business app.
Good morning, I'm Karen Moscow.
And I'm Nathan Hager. Bloomberg Daybreak brought to you by SEI. Asset managers don't get results that are off the charts when their solutions are off the shelf. Learn how SEI's operating platform can turn infrastructure into a competitive advantage at SEIC.com/IMS.
And U.S. futures are plummeting as the coronavirus spreads around the globe. 5:01 on Wall Street, and we check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures are down 80 points. Dow futures down 712. NASDAQ futures are down 278. That's down 2.9%. The DAX in Germany is down 3.5%. So is the CAC in Paris, and the FTSE 100 is down 3.1%. 10-year Treasury up 23 seconds, yield 1.39%. Yield on the 2-year 1.27%. NYMEX crude oil's down 3.5% or $1.87 at 51.51 a barrel. COMEX gold is up 2.25% or $36.90 at 16.8570 an ounce. The euro 1.0818 against the dollar. The yen 111.29. Nathan.
Karen, we begin today with cases of the coronavirus surging outside of China. In South Korea, there are more than 200 new infections just today. We begin our Bloomberg Radio team coverage with G.A. Lee reporting from Seoul.
It was just a count of 30-something cases in South Korea just on Tuesday. Now we're looking at a figure of over 600. The government officials have been constantly urging people from taking part in mass assemblies. This includes religious activities, prioritizing stopping the outbreak of this epidemic.
And the death toll in South Korea is at 7. Meanwhile, in Europe, Italy is now the epicenter of the outbreak, leading the government to lock down an area of 50,000 people near Milan. We get the latest on the situation there from Bloomberg's Alessandro Speciale in Rome.
It hasn't yet been clear why and how the virus arrived in Italy. What is sure is that for days, a person in the north of Italy was in hospital and he wasn't diagnosed with coronavirus, and this has helped spread to hundreds of people. The latest count is 152. Italy had stopped all flights to China, which surprisingly meant that people coming back from China couldn't be traced as coming from China because they were coming via other cities, and this probably has also helped the spread of the virus.
The spread in Italy is now posing serious concerns about economic growth in Europe. For more on that, we continue our Bloomberg Radio team coverage with Nikos Chrysolaris in Brussels.
Italy's economy was barely projected to grow this year, and that was even before quarantines were imposed to contain the viral outbreak. And Germany, the euro area's biggest economy and the region's other growth laggard, is the one most exposed to the disruption of global trade and supply chains caused by the virus. So, in other words, unless this is immediately contained, the illness could derail euro area growth prospects for this year.
Meantime, in China, the epicenter of this outbreak, infections continue to climb. We get the very latest from Bloomberg's Tom McKenzie in Beijing.
The top line number for total infections now here in China is 77,150. The death count has now gone to 2,592. That's an additional 150 deaths. And in terms of the cases, you're seeing an extra 409 infection cases that are being reported from China today. The vast majority from Hubei province, of course, the epicenter of this virus.
Wuhan, ground zero for the outbreak, announced plans to relax quarantine measures that would have allowed people to start leaving the city. The government is now retracting that statement, saying the quarantine will instead stay in place.
The fallout in financial markets is dramatic. We continue our Bloomberg Radio team coverage with a look at the impact in Asia. For that, we turn to Bloomberg's Juliet Sally in Singapore. Good morning, Juliet.
Good morning, Nathan and Karen. Shares in Seoul bore the brunt of the losses. The Kospi was down 3.9%, its biggest one-day drop since October 2018, while the won tested August lows. Elsewhere, the Aussie dollar remained at 11-year lows, and the ASX 200 had its worst session in 6 months, down 2.3% in Sydney. Chinese stocks listed in Hong Kong were also down sharply, while Malaysia's ringgit and equity market were roiled by domestic political developments. In Singapore, Juliet Saleh, Bloomberg Daybreak.
All right, Juliet, thank you. Meantime, stocks in Europe are getting hit the hardest. For the latest there, we're joined live by Bloomberg Daybreak Europe anchor Caroline Hepker in London. Good morning, Caroline.
Good morning, Karen and Nathan. Stock 600 are plunging 3.4% right now, with all industry groups being sold off. EasyJet, Ryanair, Air France, the biggest decliners, along with miners and car makers. With over 150 coronavirus infections in Italy, the most in Europe, the FTSE MIB is plunging 4.3%. That's the most since 2016. As the Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte's government tries to arrest the spread. Also battered Germany's DAX, the CAC 40 in Paris, and the FTSE 100 here in London, all down well over 3% just a couple of hours into European trading. Live in London, I'm Caroline Hepker, Bloomberg Daybreak.
All right, Caroline, thanks. A meeting of G20 leaders in Riyadh over the weekend was dominated by talk of the coronavirus. We spoke with French Finance Minister Bruno Le Maire at the event.
There will be an impact, that's for sure. There will be an impact on the level of growth in Europe and in the rest of the world. But now there is clearly a need for a day-by-day monitoring, and that's exactly what we have decided within the G20, and I think that's a right step in the right direction.
It's increasingly unclear how this outbreak could play out. That uncertainty is looming large in markets. We spoke with Douglas Flint, chairman of Standard Life Aberdeen, on the sidelines of the G20 summit.
It's a stress test for China. It's a stress test for the world. It's a stress test for supply chains. Hopefully we'll come out of it stronger with the knowledge that we'll have gained with how to deal with this pandemic and how we think about it economically. But it's an unknown at the moment.
And Treasury yields are plummeting this morning. The 30-year is trading near a record low 1.84%. This is Bloomberg. And at 5:07 on Wall Street, we get a check now of the latest world and national news headlines on this Monday morning with Bloomberg's Michael Barr. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Nathan. India poured on the pageantry with a joyful, colorful welcome for President Trump today that kicks off a whirlwind 36-hour visit meant to reaffirm U.S.-India ties. President Trump greeted the crowd of more than 100,000 people at a cricket stadium.
Your nation has always been admired around the earth as the place where millions upon millions of Hindus and Muslims and Sikhs and Jains, Buddhists, Christians, and Jews worship side by side in harmony.
During the president's visit, the two sides will aim to reset relations that have been buffeted by a trade spat. President Trump's top security aide said he sees no evidence that Russia is interfering in the 2020 U.S. election in an effort to support the president's re-election bid. Meanwhile, National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien says that it would be no surprise if Moscow was trying to help Senator Bernie Sanders. O'Brien also says President Trump was not and is not angry at former acting National Intelligence Director Joseph Maguire. O'Brien told ABC's This Week the timing of Maguire's resignation had nothing to do with his briefing Congress about Russia trying to help Trump win the 2020 election.
That's not true. I was in that meeting, and the president was not angry with Joe Maguire. He thinks very highly of Admiral Maguire and would have liked him to stay in government in a different role. But as you know, Admiral Maguire's time as the acting DNI was up.
O'Brien spoke on ABC's This Week, which can be heard Sundays on Bloomberg Radio. Now leading the Democratic presidential candidates after the Nevada caucuses, Senator Bernie Sanders campaigned in Texas. Sanders told a crowd at the University of Houston Americans are tired of a president who only looks out for himself.
Whatever your political view may be, the people are sick and tired of lies, corruption, and fraud.
Tomorrow, the candidates will hold a Democratic debate in South Carolina. The jury in the Harvey Weinstein sexual assault trial will resume deliberations today in New York. The jury has indicated that it is split on the most serious counts against the disgraced movie mogul. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Nathan.
All right, Michael, thanks. 5:09 on Wall Street. Time for the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update. Here's John Stashauer.
Nathan, a week after Mets slugger Yoenis Cespedes told reporters at spring training that he wasn't talky, not today, not tomorrow, not all season. He apparently changed his mind, spoke to an interpreter about his injuries, his contract going into the final season. Cespedes expressed optimism that he'll be in the starting lineup opening day next month. He's hardly played the last two seasons. Mets and Cardinals, 3-3 tie in Port St. Lucie. Steven Matz, Therese Familia, and Robert Gazelman all pitched. New outfielder Jake Marisnick with a home run. Mets got him from the Astros. Everything that has happened with them began with the accusations made by ex-Astros pitcher Mike Fiers. Now with Oakland, Fiers pitched yesterday, got a big ovation from fans. He has not spoken about the scandal. In Port Charlotte, the Yankees lost to Tampa Bay 9-7, but a home run for Miguel Andujar, who had the great rookie season, who was injured almost all of last season at the Coliseum. Islanders and Sharks.
Matt Barzell able to escape, got the pass back from Tace, slips past Gambrell, gives to Anders Lee. Lee with a shot, he scores! Two already for Anders Lee, and the Islanders strike early here in the second.
Pair of goals for Lee, later an assist. Isles beat San Jose 4-1. College basketball, Seton Hall continues to lead the Big East. Easy home win over St. John's, 81-65. 20th win for the Pirates. Rutgers, 17-1 at home, 1-7 on the road. Scarlet Knights lost to Wisconsin, 79-71. Lakers beat the Celtics by a point on a LeBron James fadeaway in the final minute. Patrick Reed won the golf in Mexico by a shot over Bryson DeChambeau, by 2 over John Rahm. With a Bloomberg NBC Sports Update, I'm John Stashauer. Nathan?
All right, John, thanks. S&P futures lower by almost 84 points, now down 2.5%. Dow futures also down 2.5%, lower by 740 points. NASDAQ futures, a loss of 290 points. That is a drop of almost 3.1%. 10-year Treasury yield 1.39%, the 2-year 1.28%. You're listening to Bloomberg Daybreak.
Hey, y'all, Jeff Foxworthy here.
Now, if you've ever found yourself repeating the same thing over and over for 75 years, you might be Smokey Bear.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
That's why I'm filling in for Smokey to switch things up, because there's a lot more to say. And I should know because my grandfather was a firefighter. And one of the things he taught me is that the people that love the outdoors the most are often the ones accidentally starting wildfires, which means always BYOB. No, bring your own bucket to the campfire. And be extra careful with things like burning yard trimmings. Don't just walk away, or chances are you might be starting a wildfire. So for the love of the outdoors, go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Why has J.D. Power ranked Commonwealth Financial Network #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the 6th straight time? We think it comes down to one thing: you. Because it's your input and feedback that keeps us focused on what's most important to you and your clients, and continually pushes us to be the best we can be. Maybe that's why we receive top marks in every category of the J.D. Power 2019 Advisor Satisfaction Survey. They named us #1 in client support, #1 in firm leadership, #1 in operational support, #1 in compensation, #1 in professional development support, and #1 in technology support. Ready to partner with the best? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com and feel the power. Member FINRA SIPC, a registered investment advisor. For 2019 J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com/o.
Imagine carving your way through the fresh snow falling right now in the French resort of Val d'Isère. Fly to Geneva and head to the slopes from only $29.99. Book now with EasyJet. One way per person, limited availability. See easyjet.com.
Pancake Day is flipping fun. Pancake Day is Stella. This day will be a yummy one.
'Cause pancakes love Nutella. Pancake Day is nearly here. Gather friends and family to enjoy some delicious pancakes on Tuesday, the 25th of February. And don't forget, pancakes love Nutella.
The Dacia Sandero and Dacia Duster have both won What Car Awards in 2020. And with double the award comes double the celebration. So, we've put a second candle on the cake. Starting from only $6,995, our prices are pretty modest, just like our celebrations. Visit dacia.co.uk to find out more about our range of award-winning cars. Dacia, you do the maths.
Wouldn't it be nice to keep things you normally lose? Your favourite scarf, your train of thought, or your mobile data. Because with most other networks, you get to the end of the month and your data is, well, never to be seen again. But unlike anyone else, with Sky Mobile you can roll and keep all your unused data for up to 3 years. Sky Mobile. Hello, possible.
Full terms and conditions at sky.com/mobile. Rita's Rowdy Enchiladas.
Every time the kids are together, it's always the same. Never a moment's peace. Didn't take me long to work out the trick, though. Shredded chicken and black bean enchiladas with lime, oregano, and my little secret. A bit of smoke and spice with chipotle paste. Hear that? Never failed yet.
Make your own Rowdy Enchiladas with Tesco British Chicken. Food Love Stories, brought to you by Tesco.
Has nailed a coveted election prize, advertising on YouTube's homepage. Bloomberg has learned that Trump's campaign ads will take over the YouTube masthead on Election Day and in the immediate run-up. Think of it as the digital equivalent of a Super Bowl TV ad that'll hit a wide swath of people at exactly the right time. Joining us from Washington to discuss, Michael Beckel, research director of Issue One, a nonpartisan group advocating for more transparency in campaign spending. How big a deal is getting the YouTube masthead on Election Day, given that there are other opportunities, other ad outlets out there, but this is a big one?
This is absolutely a significant development. This is the Trump campaign taking advantage of their resources to put money down early to secure very valuable real estate online. And it also demonstrates a way that campaigns are trying more and more to reach people online. Broadcast TV and radio aren't reaching as many people as in elections past, so they are turning over every rock on the internet to be able to go to where the people are. And a lot of people are going to be on YouTube in the days up to Election Day.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. Stocks are tumbling globally alongside U.S. stock index futures as nations struggle to keep the coronavirus epidemic from spreading further beyond China. Treasuries are jumping along with gold. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures are down 82 points, or about 2.5%. Dow futures down 727, and NASDAQ futures down 283. The DAX in Germany is down 3.5%. CAC in Paris down 3.6%, and the FTSE 100 is down 3.25%. 10-year Treasury up 22 seconds, yield 1.39%. The yield on the 2-year 1.28%. NYMEX crude oil is down 3.5%, or $1.89 to $51.50 a barrel. COMEX gold is up 2.1%, up $34.40 at $16.8320 an ounce. The euro 1.0820 against the dollar. British pound 1.2906, and the yen is at 111.30. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Michael Barr with more on what's going on around the world. Michael, good morning.
Good morning, Karen. President Donald Trump is receiving the well wishes of hundreds of thousands of Indians as he kicks off a whirlwind 36-hour visit to India. The visit is meant to reaffirm ties between the two nations. Trump has addressed a mega rally at a huge cricket stadium, and later, Trump and First Lady Melania Trump will tour the famed Taj Mahal. This afternoon, fans will gather to honor NBA legend Kobe Bryant. The public memorial for Bryant and his daughter Gianna will take place at the Staples Center in Los Angeles. They were killed in a helicopter crash along with 7 others. As for NBA games Sunday, the Celtics, Wizards, and Warriors all lost. In the NHL, the Islanders won along with the Capitals. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Nathan.
Okay, Michael, thanks. It's 5:19 on Wall Street, live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studios. This is Bloomberg Daybreak. Patrick Palfrey joins us now, Senior Equity Strategist at Credit Suisse. Thanks for being with us this morning, Patrick, as we continue to watch this massive sell-off in equity markets around the world. What most has your eye this morning?
Well, I think right now what our focus is on is really two things. Is number one, what is the spread of the coronavirus outside of China? I think that's really where we are seeing a lot of attention. Historically, it was believed to be that the pace of growth in China has been contained, but to see places like Italy and South Korea see a pickup in cases is somewhat concerning and something that we're keeping an eye on. And the second thing is really the collapse in interest rates. The 10-year now, as of Friday, was down around 1.45. It's indicating lower again. I think that is an area where investors need to pay attention as we're seeing the yield curve begin to invert across much of the belly of the curve, and what that does is it incrementally makes financial conditions tighter.
Let's get to both of your points. First off, the sell-off in Italy. We are seeing broad selling there with the FTSE MIB now down about 4 1/3%. What is the concern in Italy? Is there a risk that the sell-off like this could have a spillover effect throughout Europe?
I mean, certainly, I think as we previously believed that the virus was, I would say, well contained, I think it causes question whether or not it is, and to what extent we have the ability to curtail its spread. So I think that's really the concern. So in terms of elsewhere in the region, I would expect equity indices around not only Europe, but also around the world to be selling off in sympathy with Italy.
We're reporting this morning that the Italian government is considering emergency measures, including suspension of local tax payments, as well as other fiscal stimulus measures. Is there more that could be done to give some sort of lift to markets in Italy?
Well, I I like to divide the issues into something that's transitory and something that's permanent. If it's a transitory transaction, then it's something that we will likely pick back up. So if it's a factory buying a piece of equipment, the need for that piece of equipment will likely just be purchased either a month or a quarter down the road. In the areas where you have a permanent loss, in that case it's a restaurant or a store where that is just going to be a lost sale, I think that's somewhat more problematic. So I think the loss and the permanence of some of these type of sales is definitely tough, but it's really how much of it's transitory and how much of it can we get back once the concern starts to dissipate.
And you mentioned Treasury yields heading toward inversion, and we're very closely watching the 30-year yield this morning. It's close to a record low right now, 1.84%. Is this raising your concern about recession in the U.S.?
So what's interesting is we had a similar set of conditions last year where we had an inversion across much of the yield curve, but yet equity still did pretty well. And I think what you have is an interesting dynamic. It's not necessarily recessionary in its signal. There are certain dynamics around the world, global overseas retreat yield, which is pressuring the long end of the curve. But what it does do is it does curtail risk-taking amongst investors. Many investors use the shape of the curve as a measure for how much leverage they use and how much risk they're willing to employ. So the inversion is certainly problematic from a risk-taking perspective, and less so from its recessionary signal perspective.
In about our last minute here, as we see this risk-off sentiment pervading markets this morning, what are you going to be looking for further in terms of equity markets?
So I think with the curve flattening and some of the concerns around the world, what we are looking for really is for that low vol trade, which had been working for the past several months, to really resume working, and for that secular growth trade to also begin. What's going to underperform in this environment on a relative basis is going to be that value trade, which many investors had hoped would pick up as we had moved from September. So focus on those stocks in the low vol and the secular growth trade.
Thanks again, Patrick. Good as always speaking with you. That's Patrick Palfrey, Senior Equity Strategist at Credit Suisse. Let's just take a quick check of the markets this morning as concerns about coronavirus continue to feel their effects across markets. S&P futures are lower by almost 84 points now. That's a drop of 2.5%. Dow futures down 740 points. NASDAQ futures lower by just about 3%, point loss of almost 280 points. DAX in Germany down 3.5%. CAC in Paris down 3.7%. FTSE MIB in Italy down close to 4.5%. And the 10-year Treasury yield 1.39%. The 2-year 1.28%. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Wall Street is headed for a sharp plunge at the open as nations struggle to keep the coronavirus epidemic from spreading further beyond China. China's top leaders have signaled they will boost fiscal and monetary stimulus this year as the outbreak hammers the world's second biggest economy. Dow futures down more than 700 points this morning. South Korea reported a jump in infections while Italy locked down an area of 50,000 people near Milan. Worldwide, there have been more than 79,000 coronavirus cases, with the death toll at just above 2,600. On both counts, most of the cases and deaths have been in China. Before the coronavirus outbreak, Pepsi had been working on a deal to buy a Chinese snacks maker. Now it says it plans to buy that company, known as B & Cheery, for $705 million. The move shows Pepsi is in China for the long term, even amid uncertainty in the near future due to the coronavirus outbreak and its potential impact on the global economy. Gina Cervetti, Bloomberg Radio.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their businesses strategically, yet the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating system, you can. Go boldly toward change with SCI Investment Manager Services.
Determination and operational strength are both essential factors for growth in asset management. I'm
Steve Meyer, President and Head of SEI's Investment Manager Services Division. We know that disruptive forces create opportunities around the world. If you see potential in change, our industry specialists will maximize SEI's integrated platform of data and risk management, global investment operations, compliance support, and investor services to position your asset management business for success. Come grow with us.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/C's change.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers.
As we move towards 1 trillion connected devices, compound semiconductors made in Wales are set to power the 4th industrial revolution. Wales also has one of the largest cybersecurity ecosystems in the UK and a thriving fintech industry. 8 universities are producing a talented tech workforce for the future, and our devolved government has a strong vision for growth. If you're looking to expand your business, go to tradeandinvest.wales. This is tech. This is Wales.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
Switch to 5G on Vodafone. Pre-order the new Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra 5G by March 8th and get wireless Galaxy Buds Plus for free. With unlimited 5G data, you can post 108 megapixel photos and download videos impossibly fast. All on the UK's best mobile data network. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
5G subject to coverage in your area. MPerf test awarded Vodafone Best 2019 Mobile Internet Performance. Minimum term applies. See vodafone.co.uk.
Look at that. A riveting quest. A glorious opportunity. A scratch card. Yet he remains unfazed by the challenge, wavering at nothing.
Miss, please keep it down. We're in the quiet area.
Sorry. Here we are. The moment of truth. As he reaches...
Instant excitement with scratch cards from the National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen. Search Dream Big, Play Small. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
It's a new day. Grab the bull by the horns of ambition. There's 2 U's in future. Which do you want to be?
Or leave the motivation to Vitality. With our health insurance, you could get the Apple Watch Series 5 to keep yourself on track. From just £99 up front with nothing more to pay if you do your weekly steps. Search Vitality Health. Life's better with Vitality. Upfront payment varies starting from £99, 18 plus selected models only. 24-month credit agreement, variable direct debit. Available on certain Vitality plans. Minimum premiums, terms and exclusions apply.
Live from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Daybreak.
And it's 5:30 on Wall Street. Good morning. I'm Karen Moscow.
And I'm Nathan Hager. Bloomberg Daybreak brought to you by BNY Mellon's Pershing. Learn why the world's most sophisticated advisory firms and broker-dealers rely on Pershing to help them improve profitability, create efficiency, attract talent, and manage risk at Pershing.com.
We're just about 4 hours away from the opening of U.S. trading. Let's get you up to date on the news you need to know at this hour. Global stocks are tumbling as the coronavirus outbreak spreads around the world. Cases are surging outside of China, with South Korea reporting more than 200 new infections just today. We get the very latest there from Bloomberg's Yvonne Mann.
We're talking 20 to 30-fold in the numbers in a week in South Korea. And the government over the weekend did raise that disease alert level to the highest. Red alert right now. We heard from the finance ministry. They will be announcing, they say, extraordinary measures.
Stocks in South Korea led declines in the region, with the Kospi down 3.9%.
Meantime, in Europe, Italy is now the epicenter of the outbreak, and that has the government there locking down an area of 50,000 people near Milan. Bloomberg's Gerald Colton is in Milan and brings us the very latest.
A series of towns in a
province near Milan are in a severe lockdown. Citizens aren't allowed to leave and people aren't allowed to go in. The police are surrounding the area, and we've heard some reports that military may also be dispatched to that area. So lockdown is quite an accurate term. It's not overblown for the area just south of here.
Italian stocks are leading declines in Europe, with the FTSE MIB down 4.5% in Milan. Benchmark indexes in Germany, France, and the UK are all down more than 3%.
Meantime, in China, infections continue to climb. We get the very latest there from Bloomberg Daybreak Asia anchor Brian Curtis in Hong Kong.
China adds 409 new cases and reports 150 more deaths. President Xi calls on China to spare no effort in saving Beijing. On a positive note, 6 Chinese provinces have lowered emergency levels, including Guangdong. In business, Cathay Pacific Airways will reduce around 40% of capacity, and Air New Zealand warns its earnings will take a hit. In Hong Kong, Brian Curtis, Bloomberg Daybreak.
All right, Brian, thanks. And as global equities plunge, we're seeing a strong flight to safety. Gold is surging, oil is tumbling, and Treasury yields are plummeting, with the 30-year trading at close to a record low, 1.85%.
S&P futures are down 86 points this morning. Dow futures down 766, and NASDAQ futures down 290. The DAX in Germany is down 3.6%. CAC in Paris down 3.8%, and the FTSE 100 down 3.33%. NYMEX crude oil is down 3.5%. And straight ahead, we have the latest world and national news, and this is Bloomberg.
All right, thanks, Karen. 5:33 on Wall Street, and Michael Barr is back with a check of what's going on around the world. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Nathan. Crowds lined up outside a giant stadium in western India today as President Trump visits the country for the first time. A huge reception greeted the president's start of a 36-hour visit in a 110,000-seat cricket stadium.
The First Lady and I have just traveled 8,000 miles around the globe to deliver a message to every citizen across this nation. America loves India. America respects India. And America will always be faithful and loyal friends to the Indian people.
The two sides will aim to reset relations that have been buffeted by a trade spat. The judge in Roger Stone's request for retrial has refused to recuse herself from the case. Bloomberg's Ed Baxter has the story.
Judge Amy Berman Jackson saying it was not warranted. The Republican operative's attorney said in a late Friday filing that statements the judge made about the jury during a sentencing hearing show a strong bias. The judge who sentenced Stone on Thursday to 40 months in prison is yet to rule on his request for retrial. His attorneys say Stone's request for a new trial is based on claims of juror misconduct during the trial. In San Francisco, I'm Ed Baxter, Bloomberg Daybreak.
President Trump's top security aide says he sees no evidence that Russia is interfering in the 2020 U.S. election in an effort to support the president's re-election bid. National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien spoke on ABC's This Week.
The only thing I've seen were the press reports on this House intel briefing, which are secondhand. I don't know if they were leaked out or how the papers got those. So that's the only thing I've seen, but I have not seen that in the presidential daily briefs and my conversations with Director Haspel.
Haspel is in CIA Director Gina Haspel. Meanwhile, O'Brien says it would be no surprise if Moscow was trying to help Senator Bernie Sanders win the election. You can hear ABC's This Week every Sunday right here on Bloomberg Radio. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo says emailed bomb threats were made to at least 19 Jewish community centers around the country, including one that prompted an evacuation in Albany. Cuomo says expressions of hate appear to be on the upswing.
We've had about 42 incidents of anti-Semitism in this state in just the past couple of months. So it's not getting better, it's only getting worse.
Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Nathan.
Thank you, Michael. Just before 5:36 on Wall Street, time for the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update. Here's John Stashower.
Nathan, most feel there are a couple keys to Mets' success this season. Better bullpen, and Jeurys Familia pitched a scoreless inning yesterday. And a healthy Yoenis Cespedes, who yesterday reversed course from last week when he had told reporters he wouldn't speak to them all season. He did speak and was asked about his health. Here's the interpreter.
First of all, I feel good. I'm happy with the progress.
every day I'm still working. I'm still working to get better and better. It's not as fast as I want it to be, but as the season approaches, I'm feeling like I'm really good right now.
Cespedes missed all of last season. Miguel Andujar missed all but a few games for the Yankees. He homered yesterday. Andujar has lost his third base job, seemingly, to Gio Urshela, but says he'll play another position. The Yankees lost to the Rays 9-7. Mets and Cardinals a 3-3 tie. Islanders beat San Jose at the Coliseum 4-1, 2 goals for Anders Lee. Seton Hall's 20th win of the year, 81-65 over St. John's. Rutgers' road woes continue, a 79-71 loss at Wisconsin. Manhattan blew an 18-point halftime lead, lost by 1 to Canisius. Mac wins for Monmouth and St. Peter's in overtime in the NEC. Wagner won at St. Francis. Lakers beat the Celtics by a point. Now get ready for tonight's Kobe Bryant Memorial Service at the Staples Center. Patrick Reed won the World Golf Challenge in Mexico by 1 shot over Bryson DeChambeau, by 2 over John Rahm. With the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update, I'm John Stashower. Nathan?
Thanks, John. 5:37 on Wall Street. The latest edition of Bloomberg Business Week is on newsstands now, with the cover on the coronavirus stressing China's fragile financial system. Tracy Alloway wrote the story for Bloomberg Business Week.
You have a lot of people here who have basically tied their careers, their money, their lives to the growth of China and its integration into the world economy. And now there seems to be a little bit of doubt creeping in as to whether that might happen to the extent or at the pace that a lot of people had expected or hoped.
Read more about this and other stories in this week's edition of Bloomberg Business Week on newsstands now and online at businessweek.com. Terminal customers can get a complimentary subscription at MAG Go. Listen to Business Week with Carol Masser and Jason Kelly right here on Bloomberg Radio. Watch it on YouTube weekdays from 2 to 6 p.m. Wall Street time. Get global business, finance, and tech news on your TV, computer, or mobile device at youtube.com. Search Bloomberg Global News. 5:38 on Wall Street. Time now for the Tri-State Business Report. Here's Bloomberg's Ed Corey. Good morning, Ed.
Hey, Nathan. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is proposing a 30-day budget amendment he says will speed up the permitting and construction of new renewable energy products. Cuomo says the plan would create a new Office of Renewable Energy Permitting to streamline the consenting process for big projects across New York. A bill proposed in the New Jersey legislature would require licensing for crypto businesses that operate in the state. It would also require them to disclose any fictitious or trade names they use and the details of any anti-money laundering and counter-terror financing measures they're taking. United Technologies opened up a new engine plant this month. The company says its new 9,000 square foot research facility in East Hartford will make Pratt & Whitney jet engines cleaner, quieter, and more efficient. That's your Bloomberg Tri-State Business Report. I'm Ed Corey. Nathan?
All right, thanks, Ed. It's 5:39 on Wall Street. Bloomberg Radio is on the air from San Francisco to New York, London to Hong Kong. Let's check in with our global news team for some of the top stories heard on our 300 affiliate radio stations around the world.
I'm Courtney Donahoe on KTRH in Houston. United Airlines will lift its bag fee to $35 starting March 6th.
I'm Steve Podoskin on KNX in Los Angeles. We're looking at the challenge Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods face as ag giant Cargill gets into the faux meat business.
I'm Caroline Hetke on Bloomberg DAB Digital Radio here in London. We're reporting on plans for drive-through screening in the UK for coronavirus.
I'm Tom Busby, and on WBZ in Boston, I'll be reporting on a biotech startup that's working on life-saving cancer treatments for your pets.
I'm Ed Corey on WWJ in Detroit. I'm reporting Ford wants buyers of its new Bronco to load up on accessories.
Those are some of the stories our 2,700 Bloomberg journalists and analysts are working on this morning around the world. Some other stories we're following today. Barclays search for a new CEO. According to the Financial Times, Jess Staley told colleagues he expects to leave the firm by the end of next year. Barclays chief is under investigation for his ties to late financier and sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Warren Buffett is giving Berkshire Hathaway investors a look at the future. In his annual letter, the chairman says we'll be hearing more from his top executives, Ajit Jain and Greg Abel. They are seen as top contenders to eventually replace Buffett, who is 89 years old. Futures on Wall Street plunging. You're listening to Bloomberg Daybreak.
Why do hedge funds and other alternative managers rely on Pershing for a highly personalized experience? Mark Alderati, a managing director at BNY Mellon's Pershing and head of Prime Services, explains.
In today's fast-paced environment, where the only constants are change and volatility, you need a prime broker who's both steady and agile, focused on supporting your needs so that you can focus on growing your business and producing results. Exceptional client service and advocating for our clients is at the core of what we do. Our award-winning high-touch team is just one of the benefits of working with BNY Mellon. We help alternative investment managers create great experiences for their clients. Whether it's customized financing, securities lending solutions, platform access, or outsourced trading, BNY Mellon's Pershing is a prime broker who's committed to this business and dedicated to meeting your evolving demands.
To learn more about the unique and industry-leading solutions for hedge funds and other alternative managers, visit Pershing.com. Pershing LLC. Member FINRA, NYSE, SIPC.
Message and data rates may apply. T&C and privacy terms can be found at babbel.com/terms. Please don't text and drive.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then try Babbel for free by texting EXPLORE to 64,000. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just text EXPLORE to 64,000 and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or text EXPLORE to 64,000 and try it for free. Text EXPLORE to 64,000.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs, banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs, small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
At TradePoint, we get just how busy you are. That's why we have a handy range of services to make your life easier. Whether it's cutting timber, matching bricks, or mixing paint, we help you make big jobs smaller. So for all you need, when you need it, get to TradePoint. Restrictions may apply. See tradepoint.co.uk.
It's a new day. Grab the bull by the horns of ambition. There's two U's in future. Which do you want to be?
Or leave the motivation to Vitality. With our health insurance, you could get the Apple Watch Series 5 to keep yourself on track. From just £99 up front with nothing more to pay if you do your weekly steps. Search Vitality Health. Life's better with Vitality. Upfront payment varies starting from £99, 18 plus selected models only. 24-month credit agreement, variable direct debit. Available on certain Vitality plans. Minimum premiums, terms and exclusions apply.
Good morning, this is your Southern service to London Victoria. Join in our onboard quiz. Here's our next clue. What sea sounds like a handheld party food but keeps you dry and protected from the rain? Not canapes, canopies.
At Southern Railway, we're investing over £7 million into making improvements for you, like canopies, cycle parking and new platform lighting across more of our stations. Find out more and book your tickets at southernrailway.com. Southern Railway. We're with you.
A lot of people aren't aware that TuneIn lets you listen to the same terrestrial stations that you pick up on your FM AM dial, except you can hear them from anywhere. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
This is Bloomberg Radio. Now, a global news update.
President Trump and First Lady Melania are in India for a 2-day visit. The trip featured a rally at one of the world's largest stadiums with Prime Minister Modi.
Your nation has always been admired around the earth as the place where millions upon millions of Hindus and Muslims and Sikhs and Jains, Buddhists, Christians, and Jews worship side by side in harmony.
Democratic Congressman James Clyburn says Russia continues to interfere in U.S. elections. On TV's Full Court Press with Greta Van Susteren.
Silence gives consent. So if Mitch McConnell is silent on this, he must be consenting for it to take place.
Representative Clyburn's calling on the Senate's top Republican to let House-passed legislation addressing meddling come up for debate. On Wall Street, Dow futures are down 700 points. I'm John Trout.
They don't just talk to the most important people.
Is it as ominous this time around?
They talk with the most interesting people.
Are they taking this seriously?
Bloomberg Markets, weekday mornings at 10 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio. Bloomberg, the world is listening. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. Stocks are tumbling globally alongside U.S. stock index futures as nations struggle to keep the coronavirus epidemic from spreading further beyond China. Treasuries are jumping along with gold, and we check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures down 89 points this morning. That's down 2.7%. Dow futures down 794 points, and NASDAQ futures down to 306. The DAX in Germany's down 3.7%. 10-year Treasury up 24/30 seconds, yield 1.38%. The yield on the 2-year, 1.27%. NYMEX crude oil is down 3.6%, or $1.92 to $51.47 a barrel. COMEX gold is up 2.3%, up $38 at $16.8690 an ounce. The euro 1.0817 against the dollar. The British pound 1.2906, and the yen is at 111.32. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Michael Barr with more on what's going on around the world. Michael.
Karen, President Donald Trump is receiving the well wishes of hundreds of thousands of Indians as he kicks off a whirlwind 36-hour visit to India. Trump addressed a mega rally at a huge cricket stadium earlier today. South Korea reported another large jump in coronavirus cases a day after the president called for unprecedented, powerful steps to combat the outbreak. The 161 new cases brings South Korea's total to 763 cases, and 2 more deaths raise its toll to 7. In China, the total of cases is now at 77,150. This afternoon, fans will gather to honor NBA legend Kobe Bryant. The public memorial for Bryant and his daughter Gianna will take place at the Staples Center in Los Angeles. As for NBA games Sunday, the Celtics, Wizards, and Warriors all lost. In the NHL, the Islanders won along with the Capitals. Global news, 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Nathan.
Michael, thank you. We're live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studios, where it's 5:49 on Wall Street. And joining us now from London, Michael Hewson, Chief Market Analyst at CMC Markets, as we watch equity indices add to losses on fears of coronavirus spreading outside China. What's standing out to you this morning in this deep market sell-off, Michael?
Yeah, good morning, Nathan. Well, it's really the usual suspects, and a lot of them had already started to come off at the tail end of last week, and it's pretty, the airline sector, the leisure sector, travel sector, and what have you. We've got International Consolidated Airlines, which is British Airways. They're down 7%. We've got Ryanair down 10%, EasyJet down 11%, both budget airlines here in the UK. Lufthansa is down 6%, over 6%. And then you've got Intercontinental Hotels who own Holiday Inn. They're down 6.5%. So it is the usual suspects, along with obviously the basic resource sector, as concerns about impacts to supply chains and global demand hit oil prices and commodity prices in general. So it's a pretty broad-based sell-off, and I think there's potential for an awful lot more to go. And actually, I'm surprised it's taken so long for investors to wake up to the risks that this coronavirus could bring to the global economy, because let's face it, it's not really a new phenomenon. We've been talking about it for the last month or so.
So what explains the violent reaction that we're seeing this morning, given that coronavirus has been something that the markets have been watching since it broke out in Wuhan more than a month ago?
It's quite simple, really, Nathan. It's because it's spread beyond Asia. It's broken out in Italy. Northern Italy is in lockdown. A lot of towns in northern Italy are in quarantine. And northern Italy is really the economic engine of the Italian economy. And let's not forget, in Q4, the Italian economy contracted. So if you've got northern Italy in shutdown, that's bad news, not only for Italy, but it's also bad news for Europe. and the European economy in general, because it's going to be very, very difficult for European countries to limit movements of people throughout the continent when you have free movement of people as part of the single market. So the big question is, can they contain this outbreak of the coronavirus? And if they can't, how far across Europe is it going to spread?
You know, there had been talk even before the coronavirus reached Europe that there was going to be a need for fiscal stimulus in the Eurozone due to the possibility of further global economic slowdown over and above what's happening now. Does that put more pressure on governments to do something about this with coronavirus now at their doorstep?
It will put more pressure on them, but I'm not sure how any sort of new fiscal stimulus will help. Ultimately, an awful lot of the economic recovery that we've seen over the course of the past 12 to 18 months has been very consumer-led. Well, if you have a pandemic, the first thing you do is you lock down the movement of people and you put them in quarantine, and that prevents them from going out and spending money. It prevents them from going out and being productive. So ultimately, I think for me, a fiscal stimulus isn't likely to help in the short to medium term. In the long term, it might have an economic benefit, but it's certainly not going to help stock valuations in the short term. And ultimately, I think what investors are going to have to get used to is the fact that we're going to get an awful lot more profit warnings over the course of the next few weeks and months as economic activity across Europe gets hit quite substantially. I mean, we've got anecdotal reports already that consumers are holding back. I'll give you a good example here in the UK. Bicester Village in Oxford is a very favourite destination for Chinese tourists. 90% drop in footfall over the course of the last 2 or 3 months, simply because when over Chinese New Year, Chinese people tend to travel, they haven't been doing that. So they're not going out, they're not shopping, and as a result, you're seeing retailers getting hit as well.
And we are obviously seeing the equity market hit this morning, certainly. Michael Hewson, Chief Market Analyst at CMC Markets, with us from London this morning. Thanks so much for your insights. Karen?
Nathan, thank you. It is 5:53 on Wall Street. It's time for the Bloomberg Law Report, brought to you by American Arbitration Association. Business disputes are inevitable. Resolve faster with the American Arbitration Association, the global leader in alternative dispute resolution for over 90 years. More at ADR.org. Let's get to the legal stories we're watching this morning from Bloomberg's Jeff Bellinger.
Marriott International lost its bid to dismiss customers' claims over a massive data breach. A federal judge ruled that customers' injury allegations are adequate. A federal judge in Nevada tossed data breach claims against Envision Healthcare, saying a plaintiff's damage allegations were inadequate. President Trump's judicial appointments are among the reasons the federal judiciary submitted a request to Congress for a 4.4% budget increase.
Bloomberg Law. Everything you need, all on one legal research platform, including guidance, analysis, and Bloomberg Market Intelligence. Find out more at BloombergLaw.com.
And now another legal story we're watching involves crowdfunding platform Kickstarter. Employees there have voted narrowly to form a union, making it one of the first major U.S. tech companies to do so. For more on the significance of this, Bloomberg's June Grasso speaks with labor law expert Lawrence Mischel, Distinguished Fellow at the Economic Policy Institute.
So would collective bargaining in tech companies then be not about the wages themselves, an hourly wage, but about health benefits, vacation, things like that?
Well, yes. And, one of the things that every collective bargaining agreement has, which is called a just cause clause, which means that, under our law, employers are able to fire people for no reason, good reason, or a bad reason. And something not right about that. And in collective bargaining, there's always a just cause clause, which means that there has to be a legitimate performance reason for people to be fired, and there has to be progressive discipline. The punishment has to meet, the performance problem, and that the first thing is not to be fired. First, you usually get notice. Secondly, you may be suspended. Third, you may be fired. And so you get a chance to prove that you work with the supervisor. The union and the supervisors can work together to oversee this, to rehabilitate somebody. I have experience of this as an employer myself. Sometimes it's worked, very well, and frequently we're able to have people leave the firm who weren't performing well through that process.
Has the legal trend been to diminish union rights? For example, the Supreme Court case a few years ago that reversed a 40-year decision on whether a union worker would have to pay fees.
Yeah, an agency fee for being at the union. There have been, over the last 40 years, a wide array of things that have made it much harder for people to unionize, but some of it is actually just weaponizing things that have been in the law forever. So, for instance, it is illegal for an employer to fire somebody for unionizing, but the penalty for doing so is very minimal. Basically, the employer has to post something on their bulletin board saying, I shouldn't have done it. They offer the worker back the job, which they may not have a resolution of this for 5-7 years, but the money they get paid back is all the money they lost, the worker lost, minus all the money they earned. So it's very little because everyone has to go out and get another job. So it actually makes a lot of economic sense, even though it's illegal for employers to fire someone. And in 30% of the union drives, employers actually do fire people illegally.
And that's Lawrence Mischel, Distinguished Fellow at the Economic Policy Institute, speaking with Bloomberg's June Grasso. Catch more of that interview, plus analysis of the latest legal news by subscribing to the Bloomberg Law Podcast or downloading the show at Bloomberg.com/podcast. And attorneys can find exceptional legal research and business development tools at BloombergLaw.com. Again, futures are falling this morning with S&P futures down to 93 points, Dow futures down 820, NASDAQ futures down 313, 10-year Treasury up 25/30 seconds, yield 1.38%, the yield on the 2-year 1.27%, and the 30-year yield at 1.83%. NYMEX crude oil is down 3.7% at $51.42 a barrel. And Bloomberg Daybreak continues. This is Bloomberg.
Influential conversations from Bloomberg Television. Here's Manus Cranny.
Australia says the economy is proving resilient despite the effects that the coronavirus is having on its biggest trading partner, China. The country's treasurer, Josh Frydenberg, spoke to Yusuf Kemal al-Din on the sidelines of the G20 meeting in Riyadh.
Some of the voices coming out of the G20 saying that this might be a chance to reflect on some of the developed economies' dependence on China. Australia is arguably one of the countries at the top of that list. Is Australia too dependent on China?
Well, we have embraced China's economic success. Indeed, we've been a great benefit.
Winter joggers of London, it's chilly. Your legs are caked in mud and your nose is running faster than you. Then, get that heating on. You deserve it. Thanks to Hive Active Heating, you can control your heating wherever you are with a tap of the app, helping you save money by never having to heat an empty home. Buy today and get 15% off, plus a free Amazon Echo Dot. Visit hivehome.com to buy now. Hive services require broadband and Wi-Fi. Terms apply.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Are you curious what others are listening to on TuneIn? Head to the trending section under Browse to see the most popular stations and podcasts among TuneIn listeners right now. Check it out. You might just discover something new for yourself.
Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studios. This is Bloomberg Daybreak for Monday, February 24th, 2020. Coming up this hour.
Global stocks plunge as the coronavirus spreads worldwide.
Cases surge in South Korea and Italy with 50,000 people on lockdown near Milan.
Gold surges, oil tumbles, and Treasury yields plummet as 30-year yields hit a record low.
India gives a big welcome to President Trump.
To every citizen across this nation, America loves India.
I'm Michael Barr. More ahead.
I'm John Stashower in sports. A win for the Islanders. They beat the Sharks at the Coliseum. College basketball, Seton Hall routed St. John's. Rutgers lost at Wisconsin.
That's all straight ahead on Bloomberg Daybreak. On Bloomberg 1130 New York, Bloomberg 99.1 Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 106.1 Boston, Bloomberg 960 San Francisco, Sirius XM 119, and around the world on BloombergRadio.com and via the Bloomberg Business app.
Good morning, I'm Karen Moscow.
I'm Nathan Hager. Bloomberg Daybreak brought to you by IBKR, the professional's gateway to the world's markets. Their clients enjoy lowest cost access to stocks, options, futures, Forex, and fixed income from a single integrated account. Learn more at ibkr.com.
U.S. futures are plummeting as the coronavirus spreads around the globe. 6:01 on Wall Street, and we check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures down 92 points, Dow futures down 819, and NASDAQ futures down 313. That's down 3.3%. The DAX in Germany is down 3.8%, so is the CAC in Paris, and the FTSE 100 is down 3.5%. 10-year Treasury up 25/30 seconds, yield 1.38%. The yield on the 2-year 1.27%. NYMEX crude oil down 3.7% on $1.95 to $51.44 a barrel. COMEX gold is up 2.4%, up $40.20 at $16.89 an ounce. The euro 1.0816 against the dollar. The yen is at 111.29. Nathan.
Karen, we begin today with cases of the coronavirus surging outside of China. In South Korea, there are more than 200 new infections just today. We begin our Bloomberg Radio team coverage with Ji-Ye Lee reporting from Seoul.
It was just a count of 30-something cases in South Korea just on Tuesday. Now we're looking at a figure of over 600. The government officials have been constantly urging people from taking part in mass assemblies. This includes religious activities, prioritizing stopping the outbreak of this epidemic.
And the death toll in South Korea is at 7. Meanwhile, in Europe, Italy is now the epicenter of the outbreak, leading the government to lock down an area of 50,000 people near Milan. We get the latest on the situation there from Bloomberg's Alessandro Speciale in Rome.
It hasn't yet been cleared why and how the virus arrived in Italy. What is sure is that for days, a person in the north of Italy was in hospital and he wasn't diagnosed with coronavirus, and this has helped spread to hundreds of people. The latest count is 152. Italy had stopped all flights to China, which surprisingly meant that people coming back from China couldn't be traced as coming from China because they were coming via other cities, and this probably has also helped the spread of the virus.
The spread in Italy is now posing serious concerns about economic growth in Europe. For more on that, we continue our Bloomberg Radio team coverage with Nicholas Chrysolaris in Brussels.
Italy's economy was barely projected to grow this year, and that was even before quarantines were imposed to contain the viral outbreak. And Germany, the euro area's biggest economy and the region's other growth laggard, is the one most exposed to the disruption of global trade and supply chains caused by the virus. So, in other words, unless this is immediately contained, the illness could derail euro area growth prospects for this year.
Meantime, in China, the epicenter of this outbreak, infections continue to climb. We get the very latest from Bloomberg's Tom McKenzie in Beijing.
The top line number for total infections now here in China is 77,150. The death count has now gone to 2,592. That's an additional 150 deaths. And in terms of the cases, you're seeing an extra 409 infection cases that are being reported from China today. The vast majority from Hubei province, of course, the epicenter of this virus.
Wuhan, ground zero for the outbreak, announced plans to relax quarantine measures that would have allowed people to start leaving the city. The government is now retracting that statement, saying the quarantine will instead stay in place.
The fallout in financial markets is dramatic, and we continue our Bloomberg Radio team coverage with a look at the impact in Asia. For that, we turn to Bloomberg's Juliet Sally in Singapore. Good morning, Juliet.
Good morning, Nathan and Karen. Shares in Seoul bore the brunt of the losses. The Kospi was down 3.9%, its biggest one-day drop since October 2018, while the won tested August lows. Elsewhere, the Aussie dollar remained at 11-year lows, and the ASX 200 had its worst session in 6 months, down 2.3% in Sydney. Chinese stocks listed in Hong Kong were also down sharply, while Malaysia's ringgit and equity market were roiled by domestic political developments. In Singapore, Juliet Saleh, Bloomberg Daybreak.
All right, Juliet, thank you. Meantime, stocks in Europe are getting hit the hardest. For the latest there, we're joined live by Bloomberg Daybreak Europe anchor Caroline Hepker in London. Good morning, Caroline.
Good morning, Karen and Nathan. So the stock 600 plunging 3.6% right now, with all industry groups being sold off. EasyJet, Ryanair, Air France, KLM, the biggest decliners, along with miners and car makers, with more than a couple of hundred coronavirus cases to date in all of Italy. That's the most in Europe. The FTSE MIB plunging 4.7%, the most highest since 2016, as Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte's government struggles to arrest the spread of the virus. Also battered Germany's DAX, the CAC 40 Paris, the FTSE 100 here in London, all down more than 3.4% this morning. Live in London, I'm Caroline Hepker, Bloomberg Daybreak.
Thanks, Caroline. A meeting of G20 leaders in Riyadh over the weekend was dominated by talk of the coronavirus. We spoke with French Finance Minister Bruno Le Maire at the event.
There will be an impact, that's for sure. There will be an impact on the level of growth in Europe and in the rest of the world. But now there is clearly a need for a day-by-day monitoring, and that's exactly what we have decided within the G20, and I think that's a right step in the right direction.
It's getting more unclear how the outbreak could play out. That uncertainty is looming large in markets. We spoke with Douglas Flint, chairman of Standard Life Aberdeen, on the sidelines of the G20 summit.
It's a stress test for China. It's a stress test for the world. It's a stress test for supply chains. Hopefully we'll come out of it stronger with the knowledge that we'll have gained with how to deal with this pandemic and how we think about it economically, but it's an unknown at the moment.
And Treasury yields are plummeting this morning with a 30-year trading at a record low 1.84%. Straight ahead, we have the latest world and national news. This is Bloomberg. And at 6:07 on Wall Street, we bring in Michael Barr for a check of what else is going on around the world. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Nathan. India poured on the pageantry with a joyful, colorful welcome from President Trump today that kicks off a whirlwind 36-hour visit meant to reaffirm U.S.-India ties. President Trump greeted the crowd of more than 100,000 people at a cricket stadium.
Your nation has always been admired around the earth as the place where millions upon millions of Hindus and Muslims and Sikhs and Jains, Buddhists, Christians, and Jews worship side by side in harmony.
During the president's visit, the two sides will aim to reset relations that have been buffeted by a trade spat. President Trump's top security aide says he's seen no evidence that Russia is interfering in the 2020 U.S. election in an effort to support the president's re-election bid. Meanwhile, National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien says that it would be no surprise if Moscow was trying to help Senator Bernie Sanders. O'Brien also says President Trump was not and is not angry at former acting National Intelligence Director Joseph Maguire. O'Brien told ABC's This Week the timing of Maguire's resignation had nothing to do with his briefing to Congress about Russia trying to help Trump win the 2020 election.
That's not true. I was in that meeting, and the president was not angry with Joe Maguire. He thinks very highly of Admiral Maguire and would have liked him to stay in government in a different role. But as you know, Admiral Maguire's time as the acting DNI was up.
O'Brien spoke on ABC's This Week, which can be heard Sundays on Bloomberg Radio. Now leading the Democratic presidential candidates after the Nevada caucuses, Senator Bernie Sanders campaigned in Texas. Sanders told a crowd at the University of Houston Americans are tired of a president who only looks out for himself.
Whatever your political view may be, the people are sick and tired of lies, corruption, and fraud.
Tomorrow, the candidates will hold a Democratic debate in South Carolina. The jury in the Harvey Weinstein sexual assault trial will resume deliberations today in New York. The jury has indicated that it is split on the most serious counts against the disgraced movie mogul. Former Empire actor Jussie Smollett is due to make his first court appearance on a new set of charges accusing him of lying to Chicago police about being the victim of a racist attack last year. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Nathan.
Thank you, Michael. We're coming up to 6:10 on Wall Street. It's time for the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update. Here's John Stashower.
Nathan, a week after Mets slugger Yoenis Cespedes told reporters at spring training that he wasn't talking. Not today, not tomorrow, and not all season. He apparently changed his mind, spoke through an interpreter, although nothing about the injury suffered last year with that wild boar. He did express optimism that he'll be in the starting lineup opening day next month. He's hardly played the last two seasons. Mets and Cardinals 3-3 tie in Port St. Lucie. Steven Matz, Therese Familia, and Robert Gazelman all pitched. New outfielder Jake Marisnick with a home run. Mets got him from the Astros. Everything that has happened with the Astros began with the accusations made by ex-Houston pitcher Mike Fiers. Now with Oakland, Fiers pitched yesterday, got a big ovation from fans. He has not spoken this spring about the scandal. In Port Charlotte, Yankees lost at Tampa Bay 9-7, but a home run for Miguel Andujar, who had the great rookie season but was injured almost all of last season. At the Coliseum, Islanders and Sharks.
Matt Barzell.
Able to escape, got the pass back from Tace, slips past Gambrell, gives to Anders Lee. Lee with a shot, he scores! 2 already for Anders Lee, and the Islanders strike early here in the second.
MSG the call later with an assist for Lee. Isles beat San Jose 4-1. College hoops. Seton Hall continues to lead the Big East. Easy home win over St. John's, 81-65. 20th win for the Pirates. Rutgers 17-1 at home, but 1-7 on the road. Fell at Wisconsin 79-71. Lakers a 1-point win over the Celtics on a LeBron James shot in the final minute. Golf in Mexico, Patrick Reed won by a shot over Bryson DeChambeau. With the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update, I'm John Stashower. Nathan?
All right, John, thank you. S&P futures lower by 95 points now. Dow futures down 840. NASDAQ futures lower by 315 points following sharp losses for European equity markets this morning. We'll bring in our Bloomberg Editors Roundtable to get you set for what could be a coronavirus-dominated week for markets. You're listening to Bloomberg Daybreak.
Vatsal Shah is Senior Project Engineer at Mott MacDonald, a global engineering consultancy with more than 16,000 employees. He earned his PhD at New Jersey Institute of Technology, and as an adjunct professor, is helping NJIT students explore emerging technologies.
My focus is renewable markets, emerging technologies, the idea of floating cities. What are we doing to develop that? What will happen to the city on the water? Well, you're going to have waves hitting it. You're going to have solar. How are you going to develop plants? How are you going to develop vegetation and farming? That sort of thought process happens at NJIT. We actually plan out what will the city look like. How do we develop that? So in 10 years, we're actually ready to take on those challenges when we have our first development in the water. NJIT also has been doing a lot of work in self-healing materials. So taking the polymers and the new material that we have in our material sciences departments and putting them into things like concrete, things like steel, reinforcing our soil.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. I came out in the 11th grade. Nobody was embracing you. The kids were cruel. It was very difficult to be gay. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma. The hard part was determining that I was going to do it, but I definitely didn't do it alone.
At age 30, with the help of her mentor, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
I have a mentor, Maria. She convinced me to continue my education and to finish what I started to get my diploma. Just never judges. She's a true role model. If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, go get it. You can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
As we move towards 1 trillion connected devices, compound semiconductors made in Wales are set to power the 4th industrial revolution. Wales also has one of the largest cybersecurity ecosystems in the UK and a thriving fintech industry. 8 universities are producing a talented tech workforce for the future, and our devolved government has a strong vision for growth. If you're looking to expand your business, go to tradeandinvest.wales. This is tech. This is Wales.
Imagine carving your way through the fresh snow falling right now in the French resort of Val d'Isère. Fly to Geneva and head to the slopes from only $29.99. Book now with EasyJet. One way per person, limited availability. See easyjet.com.
Switch to 5G on Vodafone. Pre-order the new Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra 5G by March 8th and get wireless Galaxy Buds Plus for free. With unlimited 5G data, you can post 108 megapixel photos and download videos impossibly fast. All on the UK's best mobile data network. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
5G subject to coverage in your area. MPerf test awarded Vodafone Best 2019 Mobile Internet Performance. Minimum term applies. See vodafone.co.uk.
Good book. Refreshing drink. 6 degrees outside. 35 in here. This really is the life.
Could the gentleman in aisle 2 please remove himself from the hot tub?
So much for try before you buy.
Well, at Ford, you can. Test drive and purchase any new Ford car or commercial vehicle this February, and we'll give you an additional £500 off the recommended retail price. Search Ford Test Drive Promotion. Retail and small business customers only. Contract and registered by 29th of February 2020 at participating Ford dealers. Excludes Ford scrappage.
Influential conversations from Bloomberg Television. Here's Emily Chang.
Imagine if you could try on a pair of Nikes or an expensive necklace before buying it online. Wouldn't that be nice? Now an LA-based startup is trying to make that a reality in mixed reality. Ventana's software powers 3D shopping experiences, and the goal is to bring products to life and give buyers more certainty and less uncertainty about their purchases. Co-founder and CEO Ashley Crowder is our retail transformed guest. She joins us now from LA. Ashley, we've all bought a pair of shoes online and then regretted it when they arrived. How exactly could your technology change that equation?
Yeah, that's exactly the problem. And we've seen that 3D assets give customers a better understanding of the product. So actually being able to see the product in 3D and even do a virtual try-on with augmented reality has proven to not only double conversion rates, but also significantly reduce returns, saving companies time and money. The issue is, to date, it's been really expensive and time-consuming to create these types of 3D assets. So at Ventana, we built a robust content pipeline to significantly reduce the time by about 80%. So helping companies save time and money in creating and distributing these 3D assets.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app. Or check your local cable listings, markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. Stocks are tumbling globally along with U.S. stock index futures. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures down 91 points, Dow futures down 819, and NASDAQ futures down 306. The DAX in Germany is down 3.8%. 10-year Treasury up 25 30 seconds. Yield 1.3.